February 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 16. It's minus 15 in Smiths Fall. Feeling colder in the wind. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. We all continue to dig out from under a month's worth of snow that fell in less than 24 hours. Here's City News reporter Jason White.
It's been a long 24 hours for snowplow drivers, and their cleanup isn't done yet. The City of Ottawa's area manager of urban roads, Bryden Denyes, tells me the focus today will be mostly on side streets.
Our priority road network is in very good shape. We'll continue touch-ups on it throughout the day today, and our main focus will be on residential streets and opening up the rest of our sidewalks.
A winter weather parking ban is in effect in the City of Ottawa, prohibiting parking on city streets. It's in effect until 7 o'clock tonight. Jason White, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A little bit of a break from the snow and then get ready for more snow. Could see another 5 to 8, perhaps even as much as 15 centimeters in some areas for overnight tonight into Wednesday morning for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. Now, we've already reached our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about minus 16, minus 23 for the low. And tomorrow, that snow through the day, the high about minus 4. For today, already reached our high. For the rest of the day, about minus 16.
Now, right now in Ottawa, it is minus 16. It feels like minus 25. In Smiths Falls right now, minus 15. It feels like minus 24. The coroner's office says they have found remains of a fifth person killed in that explosion and fire at Eastway Tank on Merivale. According to CBC, while Ottawa police did list 5 as missing, the coroner's office says they have not ruled out the possibility there could be more. The weather did put a temporary halt on the investigation yesterday, just at the height of the storm. The coroner in charge, Dr. Louise McNaughton-Fillion, tells the broadcaster they are dedicated to getting the bodies carefully and respectfully removed from the site for ID just as soon as possible. City News time 9:02. A researcher is calling it a missed opportunity to help soaring numbers of people using opioids like fentanyl. A study by the Unity Health and Ontario Drug Policy Research Network found half of Ontarians who died of an opioid overdose in the early stages of the pandemic had contact with the healthcare system in the month before their deaths. 1/4 were seen by a doctor, went to an emergency department, or were discharged from hospitals just a week before they died. Hospitals and health networks in Quebec launching recruitment campaigns in places like Africa, Europe, and Latin America. They want to hire nurses, but experts warn that won't change the shortages in the province. This latest pandemic wave has only worsened the nursing shortage. Patient numbers are rising. Tens of thousands of nurses are out with COVID-19 or other illness, or they're simply burned out. Any foreign nurses who are hired have to pass a French test, apply to have their credentials recognized, follow an integration program, then work under supervision until they can write a final exam. Newly released documents show the Finance Department warned the Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, last spring the pace of price increases could gain speed. In a briefing note, officials outlined the case for runaway inflation as part of a larger review of consumer prices. Majority of pressures at the time resulted from comparing prices to lows seen a year earlier during the pandemic first wave. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I recall seeing a news story about a week ago, and it was headlined, "Ottawa should be embarrassed by this Toronto-style winter." Well, I'm sorry, but that news story has not aged well. Because since then, we've had some of the coldest weather I can remember in all my 30 years in Ottawa, and now one of the worst snowstorms in recent memory. This is no longer a wimpy Toronto winter, okay? This is the real deal. Honest to goodness, long, dark, cold Ottawa winter, and there's a long way to go just yet. 2 months. okay? 2 months until the first day of spring. And I was looking up the super duper long-term weather forecast, AccuWeather. The weather will not be like routinely above zero until third week of March, like 20th, 21st, 22nd, around there, before it's like you can stop saying minus and plus for the temperature. So a long way to go just yet. With that happy news, good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We're always happy when you choose to spend part of the day with us. We have a great program on the way. We're going to cover a lot of ground between now and noon. To begin with, we're not talking about the weather. We're going to talk about Omicron, COVID-19, where we are with the pandemic here in Ottawa. There have been lots of news reports recently about this Omicron variant starting to show signs of peaking or plateauing. Take, for example, headline 3 days ago from NPR. The Omicron surge may be starting to peak in some parts of the United States. And then you take this headline from CNN. This is CNN. The Omicron surge hasn't peaked nationwide, and the next few weeks will be tough, U.S. Surgeon General says. So, that's the situation in the United States, depending on the day and apparently depending on the news organization. But what's the situation here in Ottawa? We're going to put that to Dr. Doug Manuel. He is a frequent contributor to our program. He's kind of like part of our radio family. He's been on so often over the last 2 years. He's a senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. He's an epidemiologist, and he is a member of the provincial science team. Spoke with him this morning. The peak. If we hit the peak, is it all downhill from here? The peak. We'll also talk about this. There's a debate going on right now. Are people in the hospital with COVID, or are they there for COVID? In other words, because of COVID, COVID made them sick and that's why they're in the hospital. Does it really matter? We'll talk about that. Antivirals, with the Pfizer antiviral being approved yesterday by Health Canada, although by the sounds of it, it's going to be hard to come by. It's called Paxlovid. It's only for people over the age of 18, and one of the downsides is that it can't be taken if people are already taking certain medications for very common medical issues like high blood pressure and depression and anxiety, because this drug could be contraindicated, what they call contraindicated. You shouldn't take this drug if you're taking drugs for other medical conditions. So that's one of the downsides. You would also need to get a prescription, obviously. And to get a prescription, you would need a positive COVID-19 test. And PCR tests are, of course, in short supply these days. So we'll get into all of that. Dr. Doug Manuel. Also ask him about the return to school, in-class learning. That interview is coming up in about 5 minutes from now here on City News. And then after the 9:30 news, back for his weekly appearance is the professor, Professor Ian Lee, Associate Professor of Management at the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. And he's with us every Tuesday morning with his unique take on the current events of the day. And this morning we're going to get into, there's an Oxfam report. It's an annual report that Oxfam, the international aid agency, Oxfam, it's a report that it does every year about wealth inequality. This idea, the rich are too rich. And this report says the billionaires, they've never had it so good. Even the billionaires in Canada, they've never had it so good. Oxfam calls what is happening, so many billionaires amassing so much wealth so fast. Oxfam calls it economic violence. It's economic violence. And it recommends that the billionaire class be taxed into oblivion and that the proceeds from the wealth taxes be poured into the social safety net. I doubt that Professor Ian Lee agrees with Oxfam, because another annual tradition is Professor Ian Lee tearing this report to shreds. Professor Lee has always had great sympathy for the poor, hard done by, always picked on billionaires. But we'll also ask the professor about the plan, and it's still the plan from Premier Legault in Quebec to tax the unvaccinated. I haven't had the chance to ask the professor about that yet. I don't know if he's in favor of it or not. Over the last, weeks and months, he's been pretty hard on people who aren't vaccinated, that's for sure. I mean, merciless, really. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came out all in favor of this, to tell you the truth. There's also the vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers that we need to talk about. And I just wonder if that's going to backfire on the Trudeau government. Given the shortage of truck drivers already, we were short of truck drivers already, the supply chain that is strained already, and inflation that is running hot already. By the way, the latest inflation reading comes out tomorrow morning from Statistics Canada. It was released last week in the United States, the inflation rate. It was 7%. 7% year-over-year inflation. Hottest inflation number since 1982 when Physical by Olivia Newton-John was ripping up the pop charts. You remember that? If Olivia Newton-John, the spandex, the aerobics craze, the whole thing. Let's get physical. That is 7%, not the kind of number economists are expecting for Canada. Inflation in the United States, inflation in Canada, calculated different ways. There are different consumer goods in the basket, so to speak. The number to look for tomorrow, the so-called consensus number from the economists, is 4.8%. That's the number to look for tomorrow, 4.8% year over year. But to me, I mean, that number is out of date already anyway. It's a December number. We're about to move into the third week of January, and look at the price of gas and how that's gone up. And look what Omicron has done to the labor force and how many people are missing work. And now this, vaccine mandate for truck drivers. But whatever that number is when it comes out tomorrow, it's going to be a big news story because it's the inflation rate. The politics of snowstorms. Get into that with syndicated columnist Michael Taube, my friend on the right side of things, right after the 11 o'clock news. Toronto's had a taste of an Ottawa winter. But hey, Toronto didn't call in the army because who needs the army when you have Doug Ford? Don't you love this guy? No? Okay. I see a talkback hour there somewhere. There's Doug Ford. Personal approval ratings like in the tank. Angus Reid comes out yesterday, says 30% approval. He's down 6 points. He's one of the least popular premiers in the country. 70% telling Angus Reid they think Ford has done a lousy job at handling the pandemic. All of this stuff. But holy smokes, does the guy know how to handle a Ford F-150 and a shovel? And isn't that all that matters when you're having 40 centimeters of snow? It was all that mattered yesterday. He took to the streets of Etobicoke in search of the stuck and the stranded because Doug Ford is a man of the people. And all you need to do is take a look at Twitter this morning as proof that no good deed goes unpunished. I mean, look, there's a guy, yeah, he's the premier, but he's helping out ordinary people who are stuck in the snow. And for this, he is getting heck all over the Twitter sphere, up and down the Twitter sphere. He's hearing it from his critics. Why are you fixing the healthcare system, Doug, or the education system? Doug, why can't I get a test? Doug, all of it. Name your gripe, right? Now, was it a stunt? Of course it's a stunt. Of course it's a stunt. But you know what? It's vintage. If it's a stunt, it's a vintage Ford Nation stunt. It's the sort of thing, shoveling out a stranded motorist, it's the sort of thing the Ford brothers they've built an entire political brand around this. We're going to get into it with Michael Taube. For the people. For the people. And I want to ask you about this as well during the talkback hour. Coming up between 10 and 11, 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. An hour of opinion and phone calls, hottest hour of talk radio in town. We're going to do it old school. Bricks and bouquets, bricks and bouquets. After the storm, bricks and bouquets. You want to toss a brick? You want to toss a bouquet the day after the big snowstorm? What'd you see out there yesterday? I threw some bricks and bouquets this morning during my Snow and 60 commentary on Shea 106 and here on City News. A bouquet for LRT. Never thought I'd be doing that. Hey, it actually worked yesterday. Can't say the same thing about those articulated buses, though. I must have seen a half a dozen of those stuck in the snow yesterday, immobilized, so they get a brick. See, bricks are bad and bouquets are good. Old school, open line, talk radio. Toss a brick or a bouquet after the storm day on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, it's great to welcome back to the Rob Snow Show on City News once more and get the insights of Dr. Doug Manuel, senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital, member of the Science Advisory Table. Good morning again, Doctor.
Good morning, Rob.
So there's been lots of speculation about Omicron peaking, that we may be approaching some kind of peak for Omicron. Do you see any evidence of that?
I think speculation is a good way to put it, or educated guess or hint. I think there's a lot of uncertainties we're going to have in January, February about the numbers because of the testing. But we are seeing multiple signals, like cases going down across or flattening across Canada, Europe, parts of North America, positivity flattening somewhat, wastewater flattening, hospital admissions starting to slow down a bit. So there are some signs with quite a few caveats.
Okay. What are the caveats?
Well, the uncertainty for one, and we just don't have that tight surveillance. And for instance, wastewater is great. We've used it so effectively in Ottawa. But one challenge with wastewater doesn't say who has that virus going down the toilet. And for our hospitals, it really comes down to that smaller group of older people, unvaccinated people. So we could be starting to peak and come down. But if that's the young people, that's going to feel different than if we still have positivity or increased cases in our older people. And indeed, we are seeing positivity still increase in our older people. So that's one caveat. And the other one is really, we expect it to come down around 2 weeks after we impose restrictions. And that's where we are now. So it should be coming down. But, if we lift off those restrictions, what will happen? And the concern there is the two doses really isn't that effective for slowing transmission. It is for hospitalization and death. So, and as well, even though we have these really high rates, 10,000 people a day, that's 1%. But we have hundreds of thousands of people that still haven't had COVID. I'm not sure, hundreds of thousands that haven't had their third dose yet. So still a lot of potential if we open up or release too soon. Cases will just rebound as fast as they were before Christmas.
Yeah. You mentioned this word surveil. David and I, my producer David and I, were actually thinking about that term this morning. Just how difficult is it right now to quote unquote surveil this virus with so few tests being done?
I would say moderately difficult. Even at the best of times, testing misses a lot of people and populations. So you have to be crafty and smart. And in Ottawa Public Health has done a really good job of this, using your hospitalization, your positivity rate, your wastewater. Those are the three main approaches when testing is not holding up as well as you want it to. So you really kind of triangulate with all three of those. If they're all three are going in the same direction, you got a pretty good idea of what's going on. And if all three have a sort of steady projection. So we're still in the early days. We're seeing some deflection, but we'll need to have that wait out for longer before more hopeful signs of flattening or coming down.
Okay. When you think back to when we first learned of Omicron, whenever that was, late November, early December, and kind of where we are right now and how it has spread and what it has done to case counts and hospitalizations from a scientific point of view as an epidemiologist, has it played out pretty much as you expected it would?
Well, in the beginning of December, end of November, beginning of December, you heard scientists like myself with a lot of uncertainty. It was coming in so quickly, but it was coming in from South Africa, which has quite a different situation. Younger people, more people with who have had infection, different hospital systems. So we had so many uncertainties. But with that said, it came in really on the train schedule in terms of what the science table was projecting, right around 100%, right around Christmas. We were uncertain about the virulence, how deadly. Hearing early news from South Africa that they thought it was less virulent, and it's turned out to be quite a bit less virulent. The immune breakout, it's going so fast, coming in so fast, it has to either be much more infectious or a lot of immune breakout. It turns out the immune breakout is probably the heavier part of that equation.
Immune breakout meaning, what does that mean?
Meaning that, with two doses, it doesn't really stop infection very much, about 20% effective for you, protecting you from infection. Still high 80s, 90s for hospitalization and death, but with Delta, we saw 90%, 85-90% effective at preventing you from getting sick and infected. And now we're down into the sort of 20 range. So really, really took a hit. I think that was probably the biggest sort of stomach punch. The amount that we saw a drop in the ability to protect from infection, and that's really flavored this wave more than other waves. That means that our infection rates are really high, including in people that had 2 doses, and including healthcare workers and others. So we have a lot of essential workers that are getting infected or in high exposure, and that's been kind of a double whammy with not only increased cases but difficulty managing those cases.
Okay. This debate,
so that
I'm sorry,
unexpected. Yeah, that part was a little bit unexpected.
Okay.
We didn't have really eyes on that at the beginning of December, and that unfolded pretty quickly.
Okay. This debate that's happening right now, are people in the hospital with COVID or for COVID? How do you view that distinction?
And it's with, for, or maybe. I wrote about Florence Nightingale and how she used hospitals during 100 years ago, and she did it back then as well. This debate, so it's been going on for a while. The whole world is challenged by this. The Canadian Institute for Health Information that creates the standards for reporting data forever. We've had ways of reporting diseases or conditions and how they affect your hospital stay. You get an M code if it's the main one. You get a 1 if it's affected your length of stay. You get a 2 if there's all these codes. So we've always had tools. We've always had challenges with it. And the challenge here is that now that the cases are really hot, when the cases were low in the previous waves, there wasn't that many people coming in who are pregnant and 40 weeks pregnant, they're going to have a baby and they have COVID. Now that's happening more often. And so they're still booked for their elective surgery or their baby's coming. But now because the COVID's going so quickly through the community, they have COVID, and sorting out, sorting out, is that taking up an extra bed? Is that person going to be in hospital longer? Do we need more resources for that person? It gets more complex in this wave than previous waves.
Okay. What is the promise of antiviral therapies, with the first one being approved now in Canada?
It's another really, really important piece of the puzzle or tool in the toolkit. For me, I've been really struggling, or at the Science Table, really struggling about, how we're going to kind of get out of this when we have so many First Nations people that aren't vaccinated because, they feel, oppressed and don't trust the government. How do you help those people? And for me, the antiviral is a really important tool, especially for these groups that are hard to reach with vaccination. The first three things out of this is vaccinate, vaccinate, and vaccinate, but it's not going to do everything for everyone. So we need other tools to reduce the inequities and just to get our way through this. And now that antivirals are coming on board, they're another tool. The key one is going to be vaccinate, but this is another really helpful advance in this effort.
Okay. How do you feel about children being back in school?
Our kids are going back. I think this is a dilemma for parents. There's no right or wrong. You can't feel good about sending your kids back to school when COVID's so high. You can't feel good about keeping them home when mental health is such a big issue. So, and we're in the dead of winter, frustrated, and you can't get enough support, and many people feel the support's not there. I think for the Science Table, there are so much mental health challenges, and that schools have been relatively, there hasn't been, when cases go into a school, there hasn't been a lot of propagation. Yes, there has been some. So I think it was really on the Science Table, I'd say unanimous, that let's get our kids back into school. But with knowing that it's not easy at all.
Dr. Doug Manuel, thank you so much again. All the best. Always great to have you on the show.
Always good to talk with you, Rob.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 16 degrees. In Smiths Falls, minus 15. Feeling colder in the wind, though, and here's what's making news this hour. Focus for storm cleanup now shifts to the side streets in Ottawa. There will be occasional touch-ups on the main routes through the day. The city manager for roads, Brian Denya, says it will focus on residential and side streets that have not been plowed yet. We did get 48 centimeters of snow recorded at the airport in Ottawa. More snow on the way tonight, up to 15 centimeters before that stops at some point tomorrow. StatsCan is set to release December's inflation reading tomorrow. The November inflation rate was 4.7%. Newly released documents show the Finance Department did warn the Finance Minister last spring the pace of price increases could gain speed. The Citizen Lab has discovered a flaw in the app that everyone going to the Beijing Olympics has to use. It makes audio files, health and customs forms, and medical and travel history vulnerable to hackers. Research Institute at the University of Toronto said in a worst-case scenario, this app would allow someone to intercept digital traffic, record passport and medical details put into the app. Researchers also found the app has a censorship keyword list with 2,422 political terms. City News Time, 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
He's back, the professor, Associate Professor of Management, Sprout School of Business, Carleton University, Professor Ian Lee. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
And I just wanted to mention, I forgot to mention this at the outset. Coming up in about 2 hours from now, it's former columnist with the Globe and Mail. He's written 7 books, including Chronic Condition, Why Canada's Healthcare System Needs to be Dragged into the 21st Century. Jeffrey Simpson is going to be on our program this morning, and I know you're a fan. So
I am. I am.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. He has a new commentary about the healthcare system, just published by the Macdonald-Laurier Institute.
Yeah. He's evidence-based. He actually, I've read his books, and he actually does look at statistics, hard data, income data, healthcare data, high data, Institute of Health Information, as well as comparative hard data of performance of healthcare in other countries by the Commonwealth Fund, which is basically a healthcare think tank that compares high-income countries, so Canada to France to Germany to UK to US.
He says we have a deep affection for the status quo.
Yeah. And we have this myth.
We don't like to change. We don't like, we're averse to change when it comes to
And we deeply
healthcare.
believe, lots of Canadians deeply believe we have a really, really superior healthcare system when in fact the stats show crystal clear it's radically underperforming compared to other countries like France, like Germany, like UK. And the only one performing worse is the U.S. And that's only because not at the high end, wealthy people, but it's at the low end where poor people have a terrible time getting access. So that's why it performs so poorly overall, even though there are many who have phenomenal health care in the States. It's just that there's another group called low-income people who don't.
Okay, so let's get into some of the news items of the day. First of all, how are the gilded streets of the Glebe today? After the big storm.
I am evidence-based, and I will give credit where credit is due.
Right.
And a quick compare and contrast. If we go back, 4 or 5 years ago, and you and I talked about this,
yes.
I thought, and I said very publicly, that the city was doing just a terrible job on the side streets. They were doing a great job on the arterials. That's the Bronsons and the Riversides and the Bank Streets, the big, the 4-lane streets. But they were doing a terrible job. And it wasn't my imagination. You'd have a foot of snow on the street for 3 or 4 days after the storm. And people live there, and they have to get out in their car to get to their doctor's appointments or to go to get groceries and so forth. I want to give credit to the city. In the last 2 winters, and including this storm, which was a huge storm, they had the plows out. And I was able to drive down my street. They had it plowed within 24 hours.
Wow.
And so I want to, and they had the snow plows going down the sidewalks as well.
They must know who you are. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I was very pleased, though, because the sidewalks are walkable, and they had the little, the bobcats or whatever they're called out there on the sidewalks.
Yep.
But the more important part, I say that because, most of us drive cars. That's just a reality.
Shame
34 million cars.
For shame, Professor. For shame.
Yeah. Just sidebar there, okay? I would, if I was a progressive in the Glebe or Alta Vista or Sandy Hill, okay, or New Edinburgh, I would hold your tongue, people, because I drive down those streets and I see people with 3 cars out front. Okay, a Tesla and then 2 big honking SUVs, and all I have is a 4-cylinder car, and I've only got 1 car, not 3.
Okay.
So to those progressives who want to attack the rest of us, mind what you're saying.
Okay. All right. Let's get into this Oxfam report.
Don't throw stones.
Let's get into this Oxfam report.
Yeah.
It's released on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Typically it is about inequality, wealth inequality.
Yeah.
And it's released to coincide with the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is not happening in Davos this year. Again, second year in a row. It's been canceled in Davos. Nevertheless, it says the world's 10 richest men, and you would know who these people are, the Google guys, Facebook guy, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, whatever. The 10 richest men have more than doubled their collective fortunes just since March of 2020. Now, my income hasn't doubled in 2 years. I doubt that, even though you're doing very well there at Carleton, I doubt they've doubled your income in the last 2 years, Professor. But yet these 10 billionaires, their fortunes have doubled in just 2 years. In just 2 years. In Canada, 15 new billionaires have been minted.
Yeah.
And the fortunes of Canada's 59 billionaires, we have 59, that's it, have increased by 111 billion just in 2 years. Just in 2 years. That's the same amount of money that the government spent on COVID-19 income supports for workers, like the programs like the CERB. So they're saying, look, all of this is unfair. They actually call it economic violence. Yeah. It's economic violence. And that governments need to, quote, urgently claw back the gains made by billionaires by taxing this huge new wealth made since the part of the pandemic, and you pour it into things like universal health care and social welfare and climate change adaptation, these sorts of things. What's wrong with this study, in your opinion?
This report is pure intellectual trash. I've read it. Okay, now I'm going to explain that to anybody who's angry.
All right. Okay.
It is grounded in astonishing historical and economic and business ignorance. Now, let me explain that. What are the problems precisely, technically, exactly? Number one, throughout the report, they confuse income with wealth. Income is not wealth. I own a house in the Glebe. It's worth a lot of money. Worth a lot more than when I bought it 34 years ago. Everybody gets that.
Wow.
That's my wealth.
34
It's my only wealth, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay? That's not my income. I don't have a pot of money in the basement or in the bank account that represents the net worth or the capital gain in my house. Everybody gets that. Oxfam does not. They're confusing wealth with income. Wealth is not income. Income is not wealth. That's the first point where they have just gone so far off the rails, it is true trash what they've written. Number two, I think this is more important. It is a profound ignorance of the relationship between the growth of companies that create goods or services that millions and millions of us want to buy, which drives up the share price as the firm becomes more successful at creating things that we want to buy. In other words, a company is started from scratch by somebody.
Yeah.
Could be the guy that started Shopify.
Well, let's say Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos.
I'm going to
Before
sell
there was
books
no
on the
company.
internet. I'm going to sell books on the internet when nobody else is doing that.
And remember,
Right, okay.
before the company is started, there's no jobs in that company. There's no revenues. There's no sales. There's no wealth.
Just one guy.
Nothing. And no, the guy is not the company yet.
Right.
And then he comes along. Could be Jeff Bezos. It could be the guy that formed Shopify, and said, I'm going to create a company because I've got this idea of creating something that I think people will find useful and were willing to pay for it. Voluntarily. Because remember, consumption is voluntary. The police and the government of Canada cannot make you, setting aside COVID, we won't get there right now, they cannot make you buy, a laptop or go to a restaurant or go to a football game. They cannot coerce you. They can prohibit. I remember this in my PhD comprehensive exams. Governments, there's a great thinker said this, a great economist. He said, governments can prohibit, but they cannot compel you to consume something. You cannot compel you to consume broccoli or milk or cheese or whatever. They can't. They can prohibit, but they can't compel you to consume it. Okay? So where I'm going is the company, somebody starts a company, I don't care what company, and they create something, and then they start to hire lots and lots of people. And they sell lots and lots of goods because we like that service. The one I like to use is Apple. Steve Jobs created a company that did not exist. Apple did not exist at one point. And then he created a bunch of products, and he got beaten up very badly in the PC market in the 70s by IBM in the 80s. And then he turned his attention to this thing called the phone. And BlackBerry had created this brilliant breakthrough called a smartphone. The Canadians did it. The BlackBerry did it in Waterloo. And then Steve Jobs said, you know what? I can make a better smartphone that people will want to buy because I'm going to make it more functional, more user-friendly, more whiz-bang, more, oh, wow. And I'm going to sell gazillions of them. And he did. So what happened because he became very successful selling gazillions of iPhones? The share price goes through the roof. The market capitalization of the company goes through the roof because all of us are buying his product. That means his net worth, because he owns the shares, or the other shareholders, but primarily Steve Jobs, his wealth goes up because his company is so successful. So now let's decode what Oxfam is saying. Companies that are successful at creating goods and services that hire thousands and millions of people is very, very bad. They should stop doing it right now. It creates inequality. Now, this is idiocy. This is idiocy on steroids. Okay? So what I'm saying, the final point I want to make, when you compare, and I've done this many times because the data is very easily available, and you compare high-income countries, the wealthy countries, Canada, U.S., Europe, to poor or middle-income countries. That's how World Bank classifies all the countries of the world, high-income, middle-income, low-income. We have the lowest levels of inequality in the high-income countries. We have the highest amount of income redistribution to low-income people. We have the highest percentage spent on health care and education and minorities. The poor countries, you have unbelievable inequality. And they're not telling that at all. They're painting this image that the high-income countries where these entrepreneurs are just absolute horror shows, which implies implicitly that these other countries are not. I mean, their dream is to create Cuba or North Korea, where there's no private property. And I mean that. It follows logically. Because the only way you can get rid in a market economy where you allow individuals to create companies, to create a new service or a new product like an iPhone, the only way to get around that is to do precisely and exactly what they did in 1917 in Russia. And you say, we're going to ban private property. Because they even said, the intellectuals of the time said, property produces inequality. The famous French intellectual Proudhon said, all property is theft. That's a famous quote from a French intellectual, a Marxist intellectual from the 19th century. And they did this in North Korea, and they did this in Cuba. And so they have, I do want to get this one out. Those three countries do have very, very, on paper, very low levels of inequality. In many third world countries, developing countries, they have high levels of inequality. But those countries have very low inequality. They also are all equally poor and destitute poor. So I don't understand why Oxfam doesn't understand that, and why they think that having that kind of an economic system that does not create jobs, does not create wealth, creates unbelievable poverty and destitution and despair, is superior to what we have, where we have the highest standard of living in human history. And as the World Bank itself points out, over 1.5 billion people have been removed from poverty in the last 20 years in market economies. So the Oxfam not only has their facts wrong, they don't have a clue about the historical evolution, and they don't understand the economic or business relationship between entrepreneurs founding a company, creating a better mousetrap called an iPhone or a car or a Tesla, and then selling lots of them because you and I and millions of others choose voluntarily to buy that product because we like it. We think it's useful.
Right. Right.
That's why Elon Musk is so rich.
Sure.
Everyone wants to buy a Tesla.
Sure, but also, what about tax fairness, though? Shouldn't that come into the equation?
Okay,
I mean, for example, we're only we tax income, right? We don't tax wealth.
Right. Well, that's not
you're not taxed on the wealth that's being created because you've owned your home for 34 years. I bet you the Liberals would love to, but they say they're not going to.
You hear this all the time from the left. You know, we tax income, we don't tax wealth.
Yeah.
That's not true. There's a capital gains tax on anybody who sells any shares whatsoever. There's a capital gains tax. There's capital gains tax. You sell art. If you buy, I can't buy art. I'm a poor professor. But if I bought, I could buy a Monet, a French Impressionist painting for $5 million and sell it for $10 million. I got to pay capital gains tax on that.
All right. Okay.
So my point is, the only exemption is principal residence. You're quite right. We don't yet tax principal residence, but most assets are taxed. And by the way, going back to the rich don't pay taxes, this is something else I hear the NDP saying.
Yeah.
I've got the data. It's crystal clear. The top two quintiles, which means the top 40% of the population,
pay the most
85% of the taxes.
Yeah, pay the most tax. Okay, we have to stop, or we'll run right at a time without taking our commercial break, which, and our advertisers wouldn't be too happy about that, Professor. So we'll be right back. Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying, and then I shut my business down for I think a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Hey, we're back with the Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business, Carleton University. I have not had a chance to ask you yet about, so I will right now, about Premier Legault's plan to tax the unvaccinated. He says the unvaccinated should pay a special tax because of the burden they place on the healthcare system. What do you think of that idea?
I think it's a profound mistake.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Go ahead.
It is, even though he is a, quote, small c conservative, that doesn't mean that conservatives can't bring in progressive ideas unwittingly or wittingly. It doesn't matter. I don't care about his motivation. But this is this pernicious trend that we've all witnessed in the last 10 years or maybe 15 years of sneaking morality in through the back door into public policy. And I trace it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I trace it back to this belief by progressives, and I live in the glebe, and I've been in the university for 34 years, which is world headquarters for progressive thinking. The belief of progressives that they're morally superior on average. I didn't say every last one, but many, many more progressives. You see it in Trudeau. He drips this sense of moral superiority. And now we're sneaking it in on this public policy. If we're going to, and I'm not invoking slippery slope, I'm going much further. If we're going to say you must pay a special tax because you're not vaccinated, then I demand that we impose an equivalent tax on people that refuse to exercise. I walk on a treadmill, by the way, every morning for an hour, and in the spring and summer I walk around the canal. We must impose a special tax on people that abuse drugs. And I'm not poking fun at these people. I think it's a tragedy, the opiate crisis. Are we going to now impose a penalty on them because they're imposing huge costs on the system when they're taken to emergency with an overdose? What about the people drinking and driving? And then they hurt someone, themselves or someone else.
Right.
Are we going to put a tax on them? If we're going to bring morality into the equation where we're saying those people, we don't like them. They're bad people. They're despicable people. They're doing things we don't like because we're better than they are. They're bad people.
What about sin taxes, though? Isn't that the idea behind sin taxes?
Well, no, because you can choose. I don't think it is. I'm not because you can choose not to buy the cigarettes. You can choose not to buy the alcohol with the sin tax. Yeah. If you're in an automobile accident...
But you choose not to get vaccinated, too. You choose not to get vaccinated, too.
You do, but well, I understand your argument, and I'm not... I don't think that when we're dealing with health care,
Okay.
It's in the same category as it's not an ordinary consumer good like, as I said, cigarettes or tobacco, cigarettes or alcohol. In this instance, we're talking about, we have public health care in this country.
Yeah.
And I want to say one more thing to those people who think it's a cool idea. Beware of what you wish for, because if indeed you're going to say to people, you must pay because of your bad behavior, pay a separate fee, great, then let's bring in two-tier. Let's bring it on, because those people still have to get their health care. So let's set up a parallel system for all those bad people that do bad things, and then we can have full-fledged two-tier health care in Canada.
And then if you introduce health insurance, if you introduce like widespread health insurance, if the health insurer comes to you, it will want to do a risk assessment of you, right? It will want a full medical check of you. It'll want to test you, right?
Rob,
we don't do that in public health.
I know, that's my point. That's exactly why progressives hate the American system, because it's risk-based.
Yeah, it's
and
risk-based.
They say, this is terrible that it's risk-based. Everybody deserves health care, so argue progressives. I think most people argue that too, by the way, but they certainly have been that. That's why they're so opposed to two-tier, why they're so opposed to private health care. And so here they are, unwittingly, I think, bringing in private health care, two-tier, in through the back door because of their sense of moral superiority towards people who are unvaccinated. Beware of what you want, for you will get it.
Okay. All right. What about the truckers? What do you think about the truckers having to be vaccinated, or they have to go into quarantine, and the American truckers not being allowed into the country at all?
I was the moment I saw that news item.
You think that's unwise, or?
Oh, beyond unwise.
Okay.
I mean, stupid. How's that?
Okay, all right.
I saw this on Friday, and I was called by a couple of radio shows in Toronto, and the very first thing is so obvious, at least to anybody who knows their data and stats. 1/3 of our GDP is imported.
Right.
1/3 crosses that border, $2 billion a day. And guess where most of it comes from? One country called the USA. And guess how most of that stuff comes into Canada?
80% of it is by truck. Yeah, 80%.
And guess what? A lot of it is food.
Yeah, perishable
the stuff
food.
we all eat at Loblaws and Sobeys and Metro.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is, let's sabotage the supply chain system in Canada so there's less food on the shelves and we can create grocery shortages. Now, of course, they weren't thinking that. Mr. Trudeau was...
No, but they were warned that could be a consequence, though. That will be a consequence.
Of course it is. In fact, Sylvain Dalhousie, who's the food guy, the food professor...
Yeah, food professor.
Made this exactly, connected the same dots. But I think that Mr. Trudeau saw it as another opportunity to make political hay out of this. Wants to, have his people run to the microphone. We're standing up for Canadians. We're standing up against those dastardly truckers that are not vaccinated, and without for a moment saying, hey, slap myself on the side of the head. What is the consequence of this? Slap yourself 2 times if you can't figure it out on the first slap. Okay? In other words, gee whiz, what are truckers doing? Oh, they're driving trucks filled with stuff that go to grocery stores. Oh, that's the stuff that my voters buy.
Right.
Gee, maybe this is not such a bright idea after all. Ding dong, ding dong.
Okay. All right, wrap it up there. Glad you're well. Glad you survived the Snowmageddon, and we'll talk next week.
My pleasure.
All right, bye-bye. Associate Professor from Carleton University at the Sprott School of Business there. That's Professor Ian Lee. Talk back hour, bricks and bouquets after the big storm. 750-1310. Love to hear from you on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 16, minus 15 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Well, breaking news from the province, and it's a bargain for hydro users. The province today has cut the hydro rate for the next 21 days. The province implementing an off-peak rate of 8.2 cents a kilowatt hour, 24 hours a day. The new rate, a way to help families working from home more and also help out small businesses. This new rate will apply automatically on your hydro bill once again for the next 21 days. More than 24 hours after the storm began, Ottawa and the Valley still digging out from under a record-breaking amount of snow. Here's City News reporter Jason White. The latest on the after-storm cleanup.
Ottawa's major roads and bus routes are clear, but it's the side streets and sidewalks that are still in need of attention. The City of Ottawa's area manager for urban roads, Bryden Dennis, tells me his crews have another day of work ahead of them.
So residential streets will be ongoing, and our big challenge is right now is cleaning up sidewalks. So residents will see windrows blocking corners.
To make things easier for the cleanup crews, a winter weather parking ban is now in effect in the City of Ottawa, which bans parking on city streets. That'll be in effect until 7 o'clock tonight. Jason White, City News.
City News time 10:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A little bit of a break from the snow and then get ready for more snow. Could see another 5 to 8, perhaps even as much as 15 centimeters in some areas for overnight tonight into Wednesday morning for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. Now, we've already reached our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about minus 16, minus 23 for the low. And tomorrow, that snow through the day, the high about minus 4. For today, already reached our high. For the rest of the day, about minus 16.
And right now it is minus 16 in Ottawa, minus 15 in Smiths Falls. OPP looking for a hit-and-run driver just after 3 Sunday afternoon. A westbound SUV signaling to turn when it was struck from behind by a white minivan on Pembroke Street East. The driver of the suspect vehicle continued along that road and was seen turning onto Peter Street. The vehicle is thought to be a white 2008 to 2010 Dodge Grand Caravan or Chrysler Town & Country minivan. The vehicle would have sustained some front-end damage as a result of that collision. Anyone who has any information is asked to contact the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP. Newly released documents show the Finance Department warned the pace of price increases could gain speed, even as the Liberal government and central bank maintained that inflationary pressures were temporary.
In a spring briefing note to Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, officials outlined the case for runaway inflation as part of a larger review of consumer prices. The majority of pressures at the time resulted from comparing prices to lows seen a year earlier during the pandemic's first wave. But other documents obtained by the Canadian Press show officials expected higher inflation readings for 2021. StatsCan is set to release December's inflation reading tomorrow. The annual inflation rate hit 4.7% in November, mainly due to supply chain disruptions around the world. Karen Rebo, the Canadian Press.
City News Time 10:04. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So we're going to do what's called bricks and bouquets. You want to toss a brick? You want to toss a bouquet? Rob, just call Rob, 750-1310. Rob, I want to toss a brick at da-da-da-da because this person did something that I didn't like. That's a brick, okay? A bouquet means they did something nice for you. You want to give them some props. You give them a bouquet. Your choice. What do you want to do? Throw a brick or a bouquet after the big storm? Hey, do you want to sing someone's praises or do you have a complaint? Do you want to officially issue a complaint? I can be the complaint line today as well if you want. 750-1310, 750-1310. Hey, we're not talking about the pandemic. Hey, we're not talking about Omicron or hospitalizations or vaccinations or anything. We're talking about the weather instead. Isn't that a nice change of pace? Man, oh man, any way you look at it. That's a lot of snow. David, that is a lot of snow. We didn't quite make it to 50. Didn't quite make it to 50.
Missed it by that much.
Like 48 centimeters, I think, is what we're going with. 48.
48 is the official count. 2 centimeters shy.
48 centimeters, yeah. Second, according to YOW Weather Records, second snowiest January day on record. January, just in January. And fifth snowiest day on record. Overall, on record, okay? So let's talk about it. With bricks and bouquets, okay? And how did you manage? We can just get into a conversation, what'd you see out there? You all dug out. How would you judge the snow removal job that the city has done? Bouquet to the crews. I would say they've done a pretty good job. How are the roads, the highways, in your opinions? How did your fellow motorists do? Come see, come saw on that. How did the public transit system perform? LRT seemed to do okay, not so with the articulated buses. You just want to gab about the weather? I'm down for that. Rob Snow Show. I'd love to take your call this morning at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Lines available right now. Dave is in the West End. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Rob.
You got a brick to toss or a bouquet?
No, I've got a bouquet.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
And I'm throwing it at you.
At me?
At you.
All right, okay.
For having that Professor Lee on the air.
Really?
My God, Rob, I've never heard such I don't know what you would even call it.
What
common sense coming out of a man.
Oh, common sense. Okay, all right. And, so what, I shouldn't have him on the air because he's filled with such common sense? Or
that's a possibility, I guess.
Okay.
But I want to thank you, Rob. No kidding.
All right.
I'm very serious about this.
Yeah.
He gives us a lot of insight that the rest of the media doesn't give us.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, look, he's been on my program forever, and as long as he's around and making common sense, he's going to be on the show. I really enjoy having him on the
I do
show
too,
because...
and if I didn't have you to get up, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning.
So, did you venture out at all yesterday, Dave?
No, I just cleaned off my veranda, though.
Okay.
So, or my balcony.
But you're in the penthouse, though.
Yes, my balcony. Well, I got a foot of snow on the balcony.
I bet. A good old-fashioned Ottawa snowstorm, that one, wasn't it, Dave?
For sure.
Yeah.
I actually miss shoveling.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, for sure. I enjoyed it.
You did? Okay.
I enjoyed watching the wife drive up the street where there's 2 or 3 cars stuck, zigzagging around them and driving in the laneway, getting out of the car, not even saying hello, and going in the house.
Yeah. You know, when I first moved to Ottawa, somebody told me, they said, you watch, in Ottawa, they pick up the snow before it falls on the ground, the snow removal. They used to say about the snow removal. I don't know if you could say that anymore, but it's pretty good. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job over the last couple of days.
They did that in Nepean, Rob.
In Nepean, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Ottawa.
Yeah, okay. All right,
Thanks,
Dave.
kiddo.
Good to hear from you, sir. Thank you. Yep, 750-1310, 750-1310. There you go. I'll catch the bouquet. Bricks and bouquets. You want to toss a brick? Somebody do something that got on your bad side, or you want to toss a bouquet, give somebody some kudos for something that they did. I'd love to hear that too. Phil, Ottawa. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Rob.
You tossing a bouquet or a brick, Phil?
Well, we'll start with the bouquet. Let's start on a good note.
All right.
I want to commend the 6 OC Transpo drivers in the garage that showed up to work out of 30 to keep our transit system going. The maintenance people.
Wow.
Congratulations, gentlemen and women, whoever.
How did you come across that information, Phil?
A little bird told me.
A little birdie, eh? Okay.
Yeah,
all right. You don't work there, though.
Well, I can't divulge, Rob.
Can't divulge. Okay. All right.
They got everybody on a silence mode, right?
Oh, okay.
And the brick goes out to the mayor of Ottawa. It keeps on reinforcing how much we're going to be out of pocket every time they miss and show us the failures of their system. The roads were deplorable, Mr. Watson. Your job is not to tell us a financial statement at the end of the day. It's to get it done.
What do you mean the roads were awful yesterday, you mean? But
yeah, yesterday were awful.
But I mean, we had like 30 centimeters of snow in about 3 hours. I mean, What are you supposed to do if you get 30 centimeters of snow in like 3.5 hours, Phil?
I'm listening to other media outlets in Ottawa, and I'm hearing people talking about how the delay of personnel was not pushed out on time.
Yeah.
They could have. They don't have to go out when there's 20 centimeters on the ground. They could have done it in 2 plows at 10 centimeters or whatever. Just to wait for it to hit the ground. That's not. You can't maintain the road. Did you see the pictures on the 416? I don't know if that's downloaded. To the city
that's the provincial responsibility. Yeah. That's the provincial government does the 416.
I bet you if Mr. Watson was still running another term, he'd try to grab that one.
Yeah, I don't think anyone on the Ottawa City Council is interested in taking over any highways. They're trying to get the province to upload highways, if anything. But look, thanks for your call. You have nothing good to say. I think your criticism about the state of the roads at like 11 o'clock in the morning is patently absurd. But whatever, man. Sarah, Stittsville. Sarah.
Hi. Now I kind of feel bad about what I'm about to say.
Well, go ahead. Let's have at it. You want to get into a debate?
Sorry,
Let's go.
Yes,
okay.
I have more complaints and better things to say about yesterday. I understand that the weather was crazy and whatnot, but I walked to work in Stittsville. It takes me usually about 12 minutes. I didn't have to work till 1 p.m. yesterday.
Yeah.
And the sidewalks weren't plowed at all, but the plow had gone by on the roads. And so not only with the 2 feet of snow we already got, there was the plow snow on top of it. It was impossible to walk on the sidewalk. So I had to walk on the road.
Yeah.
And I kind of, without, naming my work, a little annoyed, I went to work for 4 customers. We had 4 customers when everybody was saying
the whole day, your whole shift, you had 4 customers.
Yes. So I risked my life walking along the road to get to work for 4 customers. And it was just shitty. And I understand that. I'm sorry, probably shouldn't have said that word. But I understand that it's, hard. And people are trying to keep up with the snow. The sidewalks aren't plowed. And then on top of it, the snow plow went by. So it was impossible to walk on the sidewalk.
So who are we going to throw bricks at? Let's throw some bricks here.
Whoever runs the plowing.
Whoever runs the plowing. All right. That's Councillor Tierney. Let's throw a brick. Councillor Tierney, brick coming your way, buddy. Okay.
I'm a little annoyed too with my work.
And your work? Okay. We won't call out your work so we can keep you employed. Okay. We don't want to put you on pogey just yet.
But yeah, anyway.
But what kind of work? What kind of work? Like retail?
Retail, yes.
Retail.
But important enough, apparently, that I had to go in.
Yeah.
Were
you the only worker in there?
No, there was so many of us working.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not necessary.
Like a big store? Is it like a big store, Sarah? Or
no, it's a very small.
Like a boutique
and I'm sorry,
kind of
I don't want to say more.
All right. I don't want to get you into trouble. Okay, but your boss and whoever's in charge of the snow removal.
It was just a lot of work for me. I had to walk on the road and risk getting hit in the middle of a storm because I couldn't walk, and I don't drive, so I had to walk.
Right.
And it's not, it takes me about 12 minutes to get to work, so there's no way I would take a bus. And even then, I'm sure the buses were running late. Anyways, it was just a lot, and I understand that plows are trying to keep up. But it was just a lot of snow and a lot. And even on my way back, 8 hours later, the sidewalks still were not plowed.
Did you have to walk on the street on the way back, too?
I did, yeah.
Really?
And that was scary in the dark.
I bet.
And in the snow and, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, anyways,
right.
I'm sorry. I don't really have a good thing to say about
no bouquets
yesterday.
Today.
But I understand everybody was trying to do their job and, doing it the best they could. Yep. Anyways, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Bye.
Yep. Bricks and bouquets. There you go. Not many bouquets there. Not many bouquets yet. The only bouquet around is for me? Really? Come on. 750-1310. Rob Snow Show. This is City News.
When you've lost your breasts, you've sort of lost part of yourself. And then all at once you're losing your hair. You don't know who you are anymore. You want to feel like yourself again. So I think that the store, a mastectomy store, is essential because you've lost your identity. And then all at once, you're looking for a wig, you need a headscarf, you need a camisole. There's nowhere to go. There's no one to talk to. This should be essential because there are more and more women that are getting breast cancer. I think it's 1 in 6. They're becoming younger. I have a client that's 18 years old. And where do they go? They need a place like this that the women that work there understand. They know what you're going through. It's changed quite a bit. Our hours are different. We're now open from 10 to 5. We're not as busy as we were. A lot of women are afraid to go out. They're afraid that maybe there are more people in the store. So that's why I try and let them know you are alone. There's absolutely nobody in the store except you and I. If there is a woman that she's very afraid, I will lock the door to make sure nobody else comes in. I'll put a sign back in 10, 15 minutes just to give her that reassurance. Before we would have 4, 5, 6 people in the store. We didn't have to turn anybody away. Now we do. Some clients do leave and they're upset because they're in the store. They said, you know, we drove 20 minutes and now we're not allowed in the store. And I try to make them understand that there's somebody in here that's going through chemo or radiation. So that's sort of changed a lot, that we're not able to have more people in the store.
If we're talking about products, there's the bras that are adapted for mastectomy. The bathing suits that are adapted to mastectomy. We have special camisoles as well, and post-surgery bras. And then we have, for women going through chemo, the wigs that we have a big selection in the store as well. We have scarves. Some women don't feel comfortable wearing a wig. They prefer to wear a scarf or a hat, so we have a huge selection of that as well. We offer compression garments as well. When you're going through a mastectomy, you might have lymphedema in your arms after a couple of years, and you have flare-ups. So we have the sleeves, the hand as well that can be covered. We show each other's our scar. We talk about the treatments, how we felt, and I guess that's what they're looking for here. That's what makes us special. We have an added value in this store. Besides everything that's in the store, that's a product that can handle any problem that a client might have. Me and Linda, we've been through. We know how it feels in our bodies.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Bricks and bouquets. You're tossing a brick or a bouquet. I'm willing to cut the city some slack this morning. Hey, that's not my nature, okay? But they were up against some tough odds, I thought, yesterday, the city crews, because, when the serious snow started to fall, it was in the middle of the morning. And people are out and about, and they're doing their daily errands. Look, when I came in yesterday morning, 5 o'clock hour, this wasn't even really much of a story. Yeah, the roads were snow-covered. And they had one pass with the plow at that time. And as long as you drove with the conditions, you should have been able to manage okay. But then the storm took a serious turn, I would say, at around 8 o'clock in the morning. By 10 o'clock, we had 34 centimeters of snow in Ottawa. And, if you were out and about in it, you know what it was like. Roads that just a few hours before were okay, suddenly, impassable. Is it unpassable? Impassable? You couldn't get past them. Unless you had a big honking 4-wheel drive vehicle. And by noon, when my shift ended, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it out of the parking lot here, let alone make it home. So I came out of the radio station here on Thurston Drive, and I hung a left onto Conroy to get up to Hunt Club Road. And I got about 3 blocks up the road, and there was a disabled OC Transpo bus, right there, an articulated bus. And I saw this repeatedly, all over the city. Pile of snow at the end of a residential street that met up with a main arterial, and the bus would come to the intersection and could go no further. Basically, it would just get stuck there, and all kinds of cars would get stuck there. It's just wasn't happening. And the first bus I saw the bus driver. The bus was empty, and the bus driver was sitting behind the wheel, and he was reading a book. I suspect that he was either there waiting to get shoveled out or plowed out, and probably waiting there for quite some time. Then I turned on to Hunt Club, like Hunt Club at Conroy, and I was going west, like up towards South Keys, and it was just like chaos. It was chaos, like almost without exception. Every car that tried to like turn off of Hunt Club or was trying to turn on to Hunt Club from a residential side street got stuck. You see that, David, yesterday? I saw that a lot.
Oh, yeah. That was the big problem.
That was a big problem.
Like, I live off of Kent Street, and I was driving, I borrowed my dad's pickup truck, trying to be safe because he's working from home. Even in the pickup truck, there were a few intersections. I had to take an alternate route.
Oh, really?
Because the plow line was so big, I couldn't even get over it in four-wheel.
Wow, that's crazy. So, you can't blame the drivers for that. If they had somewhere they needed to be, there was no way some of their vehicles were going to get through that. So just too much snow in a short period of time. But I'm not sure if you can blame the snowplow driver either. I mean, they're told to try and keep up with the mess on the main arterial roads. And Hunt Club qualifies, as an arterial road. And then given how much snow was coming down, it was all they could do to keep one lane of traffic open on roads like Hunt Club. So, a little bit of slack, a little. And like I said, that's not in my nature to do that. But bricks and bouquets. Kim, Barrhaven. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm okay, Kim.
You know what? I love hearing about the weather.
You do?
It is
Okay.
great. It's a nice change.
Yeah, it is a nice change. It is a nice change to talk about the weather instead of the pandemic.
Right.
It is for sure.
Exactly.
So you got a brick to throw or a bouquet to toss or what?
I'm throwing a bouquet. Throwing a bouquet because at one point I texted my boss and I said, I'm snowed in. It's going to be a while. And, he texted no rush. And then I'm still waiting for, I have someone to come clear the laneway. And it was just they hadn't been around. And so then he texted me again and he said, I just made it in. The roads are bad. I'll see you tomorrow, Kim.
I'll see you tomorrow, Kim.
It gave me the day off, so I'm not paying.
There you go. You got a snow day out of it.
I got a snow day, and I'm happy about that.
That's good. That's good, Kim. That's great stuff.
Yeah, and although I did stop to check my mailbox, and that wasn't so. Otherwise, I would waste time in snow just getting to the mailbox.
Okay, all right. Your phone is starting to break up, Kim, so I'm going to have to cut it short. But thanks for the call. Her boss gave her the day off. She got to have a snow day, so that's worth a bouquet. I can understand why. I didn't get the day off, but I am taking tomorrow off. Anne, Nepean, I wonder what place to be in.
No, I'm not. It's Anne. I'm in Ottawa South.
Ottawa South. Okay,
Yeah,
it says Anne and Nepean, but Anne in Ottawa South is
I'm
fine
actually
too.
not far from your radio station, but I'm not going to tell you where.
So Anne, a brick or a bouquet today?
Actually, a bouquet.
A bouquet. Okay.
Yes. Well, you know me. I'm like you. I'm always looking for ways to pick on the city, but that was that was Snowmageddon yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was looking at, I stayed in. I didn't even walk yesterday because I was just afraid. I wanted to stay off the road so the plows could go and everything. But like you, I was looking out and it was, a normal Charlie Brown snowfall. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, it's a freaking blizzard.
It was like a nor'easter out there.
And it kept going. It kept going and going, and the wind was blowing. I think, but I noticed what that other lady, was it Sarah, said?
Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is that they did the side streets later at night. So somehow someone had done the sidewalk plowing, and then the other plow came by and did the side streets. So there you've got like a huge pile of snow at the end of every sidewalk. So like her, I was walking on the road this morning when I was walking, but I was walking early, so I didn't care. But I can't pick on the city at all. Like that was an awful lot of snow, and
in such a short period of time too.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the accumulation. Like even just by the time, even in the time that I was at work, my car was almost buried in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I was only here from, say 5:30 until noon. I leave at noon. So yeah, it was crazy.
And I think it's okay that Doug Ford was helping people who were stuck. Quit picking on him.
They are picking on him, though. Holy cow. No good deed goes unpunished if you're Doug Ford. My goodness gracious. Yeah. It was kind of a stunt, though, right? It was a stunt.
Yeah, because he's sort of in the doghouse right now. So.
Oh, he's in the doghouse. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Mo in Canada, you're on City News. Mo?
Morning, Rob.
Morning.
How
Bricks. Are you throwing bricks or bouquets today?
Oh, a dozen bouquet flowers.
Okay, good. All right. To who?
Yes. You remember, I hope some of us listening, those of us who pulled over and helped someone in need.
Oh, yes.
Stranger.
Yes. Yeah.
I done it to them yesterday.
Oh, you did?
And
Okay.
it felt great. I hope everyone does it once a while. If you don't even, get out of your comfort side. And just, even if you help your neighbor can't get out of their driveway, one of them was stuck on Hunt Club, and one was stuck on just before Hunt Club, the Merville side.
Yes, okay,
And
okay.
I didn't even hesitate. I just went out. Another fella come over. We helped. The lady had a little shovel. We helped, and we even used our foot to clear the snow. And little Honda Civic went through.
Good, good. Yeah, there were a lot of vehicles stuck trying to get on and off of Hunt Club yesterday, right, Mo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I hope we continue to help each other, and that's my thing to say. Good.
Yeah,
thing.
it's
I'm
great
not gonna
stuff, Mo.
complain about it.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. Thank
Have a
you.
good day,
You too.
and
You too.
Bye.
Yep. Jason in Barhaven. Jason.
Good morning. Yeah, Mo kind of stole my bouquet. I was going to, I walked out back yesterday, and we live in a condo, and the back parking lot was just like a sea of white, and it looked like a bunch of boats out at anchor with all the cars that were stuck in the snow, And anyway, but the neighbors all got out and got their snow gear on, and we all went out and got everyone unstuck, and it was just awesome. It was just everybody helping each other out, and it was really just a Canadian thing to do.
Canadian thing, yeah, that's great.
And that was really great. And just real quick, I got another bouquet for the Pittsburgh Penguins because I had a $4 bet on a 8-game parlay, and I won $1,000 off $4 last night.
You won $1,000 on a $4 bet. $4,
yeah. San Francisco 49ers. This was on Sunday.
Yeah.
San Francisco 49ers, the Utah Jazz, Minnesota Timberwolves. What was the other game? LA last night, Kansas City -13, and then Seattle Kraken, Pittsburgh Penguins, and there was one other game I can't. But anyway, a $4 bet, I won $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So
very well. That's probably your reward for being such a good neighbor, Jason. There you go. Thank you for your call.
Buddy.
Yeah, bricks and bouquets. Rob Snow Show the day after the big storm. 750-1310. Back right after the news on City News.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 16. In Smiths Falls, minus 15. Feeling colder in the wind. And here's what's making news this hour. The province has implemented off-peak pricing for your hydro for the next 21 days. You will be billed 8.2 cents a kilowatt hour, 24 hours a day for the next 21 days. The province says it's a way to help those who are working from home, also helping out small businesses. This new rate, though, does apply to everyone automatically. Side streets, residential streets, sidewalks, they're getting the focus today for snow clearing. The city says the main routes will be touched up on occasion through the day, but the main effort is to clear the 48 centimeters of snow that fell in Ottawa on those areas. Oh, and more snow on the way. Starting tonight and ending tomorrow could be up to another 15 centimeters. There's been quite a jump in the number of people in hospital with COVID in Ontario today. The province says there are 4,182 people and 580 of them are in ICUs. Ontario has also recorded another 38 deaths on the coronavirus. City News Time, 10:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
All right, second half talk back hour. Bricks and bouquets. Are you tossing a brick? I don't like what you did. Tossing a brick? Or, that was nice to see. I'm going to toss a bouquet that you did something nice to me. That's what we're doing the day after the big storm. If I had to toss a brick at something, it'd be those articulated buses. I don't know how many news stories we've done about these darn articulated buses over the years. We have had so many models of those accordion buses in my time in Ottawa, like more than 30 years now. And they've never performed well on a winter's day. I mean a bad winter's day. And I think, once again, look, it's pretty clear. These vehicles are not up. I mean, they're not up to the worst that Ottawa has to offer. I mean, they can get through, I guess, a typical winter day, but and yesterday was atypical. I understand that, but gosh, they're not up to the job of a day like yesterday. And I guess you could say, neither were a lot of other vehicles, but we have a history with those articulated buses. The very first ones we bought. Where did they come from, David? Do you remember looking that up? You looked that up, those very first ones. The very first articulated buses, do you remember? And they rusted out. They were just terrible, the very first ones that we bought for Ottawa. And I can also remember, scenes from winters past where they couldn't get out of LeBreton Flats, couldn't get up the, modest grades of LeBreton Flats, people getting out trying to push their bus. All kinds of questions about these buses years ago. Why do we buy buses that can't be outfitted with snow tires? So I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same. But miracles happen, though, because the light rail system, which has been nothing but a proven loser for most of its miserable existence, it actually ran like a top yesterday in the worst of winter that anyone can remember. We had no wires falling off of trains, no breakdowns, no computer malfunctions. The trains actually managed to stay on the tracks, which is nice, kind of like a miracle on ice. Do you believe in miracles? Bricks and bouquets. So I would throw a bouquet to the light rail system. It held up. It functioned the way, we thought it would when we spent $2 billion on it. It actually worked. And I throw a brick at the articulated buses of the OC Transpo fleet, performing as, they have always done for decades when there's a terrible snowstorm in Ottawa, which is to say, they get stuck. Colin in Canada, you're on City News. Colin, good morning.
David wasn't born when we got the first articulated bus.
No, but I'm trying to think where we got them from.
I can't
some
remember.
far-flung country in Europe somewhere. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but nevertheless.
I got two bouquets. I'm going to go a little against your grain. One to the snowplow guys in my neighborhood in Glencairn for the city, because I think they did a great job. And I'm driving around now because that's all we can do because, everything's closed. But 80% of what I've driven by is completely center out, even a lot of the side streets. So when you think about, 40 centimeters of snow or whatever it was that fell yesterday, and most of our streets are passable already, I think that's pretty good.
Yep.
And
48 centimeters. 48 centimeters.
Yeah. Which is, and then my local guys, the Capital snowblowing guys, they were awesome too. They were out at like 3 a.m, both nights, making sure, and it's just a great group of guys. But I don't know why you didn't have, take your time and brush everybody's car off at the parking lot yesterday before you left. That would have been a nice thing.
That would have been, yes, it would have been a nice thing to do. That's true.
Anyways, have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Colin. 750-1310. 750-1310. For the first time, 3 lines available. We're doing kind of old school Bricks and Bouquet show. I would say most of my fellow motorists, good job. I would throw you all a bouquet, took your time, didn't rush, cleared the snow off your car. But there was one guy, I'm just going to say it's a guy. I don't know if it was a guy, a person in a Ford Escape. Okay. I was on Hunt Club going westbound. I was on the Hunt Club Bridge, and this person in the middle of a blizzard was driving so fast it was like they were going the other way. Like 4-wheel drive does not make you invincible. Okay, so I'm throwing a brick at that person, and I'm throwing a brick to a person that I saw yesterday. It was around 5:30 in the morning, Tim Hortons drive-through, and this person who was driving a Hyundai made no effort at all to clear the snow off their vehicle. It was like whatever job the wipers on the front windshield were going to do, and then that's it. And they're going to like roll down the window on the driver's side and the passenger side, and that's it. Like rear windshield covered in snow, roof covered in snow, back windows covered in snow. Like nothing just screams, I'm a lazy person. I'm a selfish person. I don't care about other people than someone who can't spare a few minutes to just clean the snow off their vehicle. So I that's a brick. You toss a brick at that person. Mike, Westboro. Mike, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
Morning, Mike. Bricks or bouquets? What are you tossing this morning?
So I have a bouquet.
All right, good.
You already mentioned YOW Weather Record. I just wanted to reiterate YOW Weather Record on Twitter. They had it out on Friday that this was going to be a huge storm, once-a-decade storm, which ended up being a lot bigger than that. But I would recommend anyone follow that account if you want to know some, great weather stats, but also be prepared for storms like this. It really helps.
Yep. And when you say be prepared, like what are you talking about specifically? Like, have a little shovel in your car, for example.
Well, that and also call ahead to work. I was able to call ahead and get make sure I had the day off, so I didn't have to go into work.
Right.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend following that account.
Okay. Yeah. YOW_weather on Twitter. YOW Weather Records. Yeah, it's very good stuff. I love it. Yeah, I've been following it since its earliest days. All right, Mike. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rob.
Yep. Thanks for the call. Yep. 750-1310. 750-1310. Brent in Ottawa. Brent, good morning.
Yeah, Rob.
Hi, Brent.
Just want to throw out a big bouquet this morning. The big explosion they had on Maryville.
Yes,
tragic. So I'm a firefighter in Prescott, and my brother works for the Butler Group, who bought the old Hydro building, Ottawa Hydro building on Maryville.
Okay.
And he reached out to Deputy Chief Paul Hutt and offered the building and the premises for them to set up their command centers. So it was huge. They got a heated building there, and they were very overwhelmed. So a big gesture to my brother, Lynn Norton.
Okay, Brent. Thank you, Brent, for calling and pointing that out, sir.
Okay,
much appreciated. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and of
Rob.
course, we're reading about the details of the victims and their families and those who remain missing from that terrible industrial accident. And yesterday, a very difficult day as the storm really hampered any kind of cleanup efforts or investigation into one of the worst industrial accidents in Ottawa's history. I mean, it's the worst in decades. I've been trying to think of the last time that there was a workplace incident that has been that was so tragic, with such a tremendous loss of life as that one. So yeah, we're thinking about the victims and their families, despite the weather yesterday, for sure. 10:41, Rob Snow Show. We're doing the talkback hour. We're doing bricks. We're doing bouquets. What do you toss today? Bricks? Bouquets? Somebody annoy you or somebody do a good deed after the big storm yesterday? How about it? Let me know. Here we go. 750-1310. Let's take this line right here. Abe in Orleans. Good morning, Abe.
Good morning. How are you, Rob?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. You have a brick or a bouquet, or what are you doing today?
I have two bouquets I want to give out.
Excellent. Yes, go ahead.
The first one is to my neighbor, Dan, who whipped out his snowblower, did our side of the driveway. We have a shared driveway.
Okay, good. That's nice.
Unsung hero, that man.
And then, well, he's not unsung anymore. You're singing about him right here. Yeah, that's good.
He's not unsung anymore. I hope he's listening to this.
Awesome.
And then the second bouquet is to the people on Celeste Way who got me out of the snow that was... I got my truck stuck while I was delivering parcels.
Oh, okay.
Who pushed me out just now. To the people
just
there
now.
Orleans,
Okay.
Yeah, to the people there. There's about a few of them. They helped me get dug out of the snow and gave me a push to freedom.
The push to freedom. I love it, Abe. I love it. All right.
Thank you, Rob.
So, Abe, you've been out and about delivering parcels all day so far, or what?
Well, yesterday they gave us the day off.
Okay.
And then today we're going out. So
yeah. How's it been so far? So you've got stuck once already. How has it been so far, though?
I've been stuck 3 times actually already, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got myself out twice, but then the third time I was in there pretty good. But about half the streets are like the side streets are paved, the other half are not. So for now I'm just skipping those ones and coming back to them later.
All right, yeah, good job. Hey, all the best, Abe. Thank you. Take it easy out there. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. Let's stop here. We'll come back on the other side and wrap things up. There's 2 lines available there. We're just doing bricks and bouquets today. Old school, call in, talk radio on the Rob Snow Show right here on City News.
Well, we're celebrating our 43rd year. It's still family operated. We're in our 2nd generation. We, pre-COVID, we're at about 1,000 employees. We have 20 stores from coast to coast in Canada. We do our own manufacturing. Right here in Ottawa, we have about 160 people that support Canadian-made manufacturing in addition to our retail stores. Taking you back to mid-March and the impact of the pandemic on Lee Valley. Lee Valley was actually in a tough spot. We had just launched our website a few months prior to that, and we were going through, a fairly typical deployment dive where your customers retract as they adjust to the website. And then under stress already, this pandemic hit. And in the early days, it was pretty critical. It hit us really hard. Stores were closed. We weren't sure what to do, so we had to go right into survival mode. As a result, we had to take our workforce almost back to half of where we were at because the stores were closed, and with 20 stores, that's a big retail workforce. But what we were able to do pretty quickly, with a little luck, being essential, selling tools and hardware, we were able to adjust our business model, with respect to the stores and our fulfillment operation. That new website that we were under stress worked out well for us because as the world was under house arrest, people were looking to online, and the conversion to our online sales in some cases almost doubled. And we saw tremendous interest in things to do at home. Where we were lucky once again and fortunate is that our product offering. Work at home tools, craft, hobbies, backyard, container gardening, you name it, what we sold was really appealing to people. With respect to our stores, Lee Valley, a rare unknown fact was that we were one of the pioneers of curbside pickup. We've been doing it for 25 years. Pretty much dove right into the application to help with the contactless shopping right away. We took the application And it's not like a Apple application where you have to download it to your phone and clutter up your phone. This is literally resides right on our website. So you walk into our store with your phone, you pull up our website, and there's a little scan icon. You just tap that, select your store, off you go. You go through the showroom, you scan product, you can read more about it, you can check the on hand, you can add it to your cart, continue to shop, and when you're ready, you just submit it to the counter. We'll go pick it for you. We'll call out your name, we'll check you out, send you on your way. You haven't touched anything. It's completely safe, and it's using a device you're comfortable with and a website that you're familiar with. Amazingly, 9 out of 10 people that used it loved it and want to use it again.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Oh, what about Premier Ford while we're talking about bricks and bouquets? You know, do you toss him a brick or a bouquet after yesterday and his social media presence? He's look, bricks, bouquets. He's getting all of that and more thrown at him on social media, you know, out and about, shoveling people out, giving people a ride in his Ford F-150. Boy, some people are giving him holy heck. Nothing but a photo op, political stunt, Premier down in the polls, looking for a boost. There are some singing the man's praises, you know, and giving holy heck to the people who are, you know, spending their time behind computer screens and criticizing Doug Ford. To me, that was vintage Doug Ford. We're going to talk about this with Michael Taube after the 11 o'clock news. When I saw that yesterday, I thought that's vintage Ford Nation right there. That is the kind of thing that put the Ford brothers on the map to begin with, and it's part of their brand. Like it's what made them a force to be reckoned with in politics. Like, hey, we're just regular people, and this is how we help out our neighbors when times are tough. You know, we're not the insiders. We're not the elites. We're down in the trenches. We're feeling the pain of the common folk, you know, friends and folks and folks and friends and friends and folks and folks and friends. Gonna play a clip? Is this Doug Ford? Got a clip of Doug Ford?
Oh, I do, yeah.
Okay. It looked like you were going to play a clip there. You were giving me the eyeball.
I wasn't giving you the eyeball. I have a section of Richard Southern's interview with the Premier from yesterday.
Oh, okay. How long is it?
It's 43 seconds.
Let's play that. Okay.
Yeah. Tell us, you're actually out helping dig people out of the snow, right? Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm just out there trying to help people. The cars, they're stuck in a snowbank and got a few people out so far. We're just doing what everyone else is doing. It's helping out. I'm fortunate enough. I got the Ford 150 4x4, and it's really making a difference.
What's the reaction when they see Doug Ford roll down the window?
I don't know. The one guy was helping me push. He didn't know it was me, and then he looked up and he goes, "Oh my!" But it doesn't matter. I'm just like everyone else. I put my pants on one leg at a time. I'm no different. You're going to help your fellow, Etobicoke folks, in my case.
Yeah, Etobicoke. Yeah. So there you go. There's Doug Ford. Okay. All right. Bricks and bouquets. Barry in the East End. Barry, good morning. You're on City News.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Barry. You going to toss brick or a bouquet?
I got a brick and 2 bouquets.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, well, I'll start with the brick. I'd like to tap my own head on with the brick. Yesterday, I should explain. I'm a brand new snowblower owner.
Okay.
And this is the first winter I've used it. I've been in Ottawa for 40 years, but I haven't had a snowblower for at least 35 of them. Anyway, it was the third time I'd used it, and yesterday was a bit of a challenge, like for everybody else.
Yeah.
And as I was nearing the end of my drive, I did not see an approaching vehicle.
Uh-oh.
And unfortunately, I gave him a pretty good coating of the ejaculate from my chute. And
thanks for that description of the event. Yeah, okay. Okay.
He flipped me a bird, which was entirely appropriate.
Right.
If he happens to be listening, I'm here in the East End, the north side, not far from the river. if he happens to be listening, I offer him a sincere apology.
Okay. Right.
And the two bouquets, the one is for my neighbour across the road who coached me in the actual machine to buy. And it's a very good one. I'm very pleased with it.
Good.
And also gave me some sound advice on how to use it. And actually, my second bouquet was for Ford.
Oh, for Ford. Okay, Doug Ford. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a struggle that he's having to cope with, and I think he's doing pretty good. But in particular, he's just given us a 3-week break on the hydro, which will be very nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah. Okay, Barry. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yes, it can be challenging with, I don't know if some of them are motorized. The one on my old snowblower is like a crank thing to direct where the snow goes. It can be tricky. It can be, especially on a very very windy winter day. Ford. Was it a stunt? Sure, I'm sure it was a stunt. But, gosh, from a political point of view, to me, it's just like pure gold. I don't see Del Duca out with his shovel yesterday in his little, he probably drives a puny little Prius, right? And Horvath, Andrea Horvath is a New Democrat. I didn't see her pulling people out on her bicycle yesterday. Doug Ford, God bless him. Pierre in Orleans. Good morning, Pierre.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Pierre. I'm good, Pierre. Thank you. Bricks
I have a brick.
bouquet.
And,
you have a brick. Okay, all right.
It's very interesting that you brought up Mr. Ford.
Yeah.
Because the brick is for the powers that be.
Okay.
And what I mean is, why did everybody go to work and do all their things they did yesterday when we had instead of just staying home and letting the road crews do their job?
Okay.
So what did we solve? What big things did we do with opening up a McDonald's or if people stayed at home?
Well, I did one heck of a radio show yesterday, Pierre. I thought I was brilliant yesterday. So
I was at work yesterday.
Yeah.
And I did work all day. I was busy.
Yeah.
But I thought again, go back to when COVID started.
Yeah.
The urgency of COVID, it was vacant. Everything was empty. Everybody stayed home.
Yeah.
And, so people jumped yesterday. They know there's this major snowstorm, and they jump in their car to go to get groceries to get, Charmin toilet paper. I don't know what they went and got.
So you think everything should have been closed then?
Well, someone should make a call.
Okay.
Again, for the safety of people that are out there, that are running on the roads and the highways and everything else.
Yeah.
And the roads and the emergency crews that can't get around. And, there's numerous reasons why we didn't have to be out and about yesterday.
So, you don't blame the premier for that, do you?
No, I'm just saying, what was he out doing other than the photo op? What was he out doing driving around? Right?
Well, he said he's a man of the people and he's helping the people. That's what he says he's doing.
Home. Well, no, he's just one or the other. Again, like the person that's gone to McDonald's to get some McNuggets. Give me a break. Stay home.
All right.
In the middle, come out today. I'm out today. I'm driving right now.
Yeah.
I've stopped at a parking lot. I was waiting to talk to you. But it's how urgent is it that you go out in a snowstorm?
Not urgent at all.
Go to
Not urgent
or whatever.
Yeah.
And all the people that had to go to work yesterday because their employers deemed that it was important for them to be there.
Yeah.
Well, my company, part of one of the side effects, one of the things that my company does is delivers. Well, they didn't deliver yesterday.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So no product got out because of the snowstorm, which was a wise move. But why were we even there in the first place?
Why were you even there in the first place? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Pierre. Should have given more people should have got the day off, you think, Pierre?
Well,
call it a snow day.
Got snow day.
Yeah.
Some of them.
All right. I know.
Hey,
I would have taken the snow day.
Hey,
Hey, thanks, Pierre. I enjoy your call, sir. Thanks. I appreciate your point, sir. I don't really disagree with you. I see the Peel Paramedic Union tweeted at the premier and gave him heck for being out there. And not only for being out there, but he did a hit. Did you see the hit he did on CP24? You shouldn't be driving and doing television interviews during a blizzard.
Just a bad
that. And some people are playing Super Sleuth on Twitter, you know, and saying that one of the pictures of the car that he was digging out the allegation was that's not even a real, like, everyday person. It's his director of media relations.
Yeah, they thought they planted the car.
Like the car was planted there, and the lady in distress, like it was all like a deceptive choreographed act, you know? There's no truth to that, is there? Yeah.
All I know is Ivana Yelich, the Premier's media relations person, tweeted and said, "That's not me in the photo. Wasn't me. I was at home yet." And I talked to Richard Southern this morning.
And it's not me, and that's not my car.
And she said she told Richard Southern she was at home all day yesterday.
Home all day. Okay. All right. And the other thing they're giving him heck for is he's apparently, I don't know, he picked up some stranded guy, and they're not wearing masks in the Premier's truck. Like, why isn't that person wearing a mask? So we'll get into all this. Michael Taub's coming up right after the news at 11. But John's in Vernon. John, good morning, John.
Good morning.
Hey, great to hear from you, John. Are you doing a brick or a bouquet this morning?
Well, sort of one of each.
One of each. I'm down with that, yeah.
I'm a retired OC Transpo driver.
Yeah.
And I've driven the Arctic buses many, many, many times.
Yes.
And I've had no problem driving them. It's knowing how to drive them.
Knowing how to drive them. Well, there were a lot of them that were stuck yesterday and couldn't get anywhere. So
yeah, I've driven in some of the worst storms there's going. Even one like yesterday, I could drive in that storm and not have any problems.
Well, why do they keep getting stuck then? What's the issue?
Because they don't know how to drive them in the snow.
Well, what's
the trick? Into the curb to pick up passengers. Then they get stuck. They stay out on the main.
Oh, stay out on the road.
Okay. Yes.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Did you actually drive those original ones, the very first accordion buses? Did you ever?
The first ones that came in were GM.
Well, it says that they were from Hungary. They came in from Hungary.
Well, those were the Icaruses. They come in in between the
85 to 89, it says.
Yeah, those are Icarus buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I drove them too.
You drove them too? Yeah.
Yeah.
They rusted bad. Terrible rust.
The engine were in the center of the bus, not in the back, the way they are now.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Was it the engine better in the center, or is it?
Well, it's a different type of bus.
Right. Okay.
It would be the back end would not track the same as they are doing now.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, John. So that's your. What is that? Your brick or your bouquet?
Well, I'm going to give a bouquet to the guys who know how to drive the buses and don't get stuck. Got a brick to the ones that don't know how to drive the buses.
Okay, fair enough, John. Okay, thanks, John. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye. Hey, there you go. Fun hour. Nice not to talk, about the pandemic and vaccines, although we'll probably be right back into that tomorrow. You never know. Michael Taub on Ford Nation, the key to Ford Nation, some of the keys to the success of Ford Nation. Coming right up with Michael Taub, syndicated columnist, former Stephen Harper speechwriter. This is City News.
YWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 18th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 16 degrees. It's minus 15 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. It is a bit of a bargain for a short period of time for hydro users. The province today cutting the hydro rate for the next 21-day billing cycle. The province implemented the off-peak rate of 8.2 cents a kilowatt hour 24 hours a day. The new rate, the province says, is a way to help families who are working from home more and also help out small businesses. This will apply automatically to your hydro bill. You don't have to do a thing. Ottawa and the Valley continue digging out from just under a month's worth of snow that fell in just under 24 hours. City News reporter Jason White with the latest.
It's been a long 24 hours for snowplow drivers, and their cleanup isn't done yet. The City of Ottawa's area manager of urban roads, Bryden Denyes, tells me the focus today will be mostly on side streets.
Our priority road network is in very good shape. We'll continue touch-ups on it throughout the day today, and our main focus will be on residential streets and opening up the rest of our sidewalks.
A winter weather parking ban is in effect in the City of Ottawa, prohibiting parking on city streets. It's in effect until 7 o'clock tonight. Jason White, City News.
City News time, 11:02. A record number of people in hospital today with COVID-19. The province says 4,182 people, 580 of them are in the ICU. Ontario has also recorded another 38 deaths that are blamed on COVID-19. According to the provincial numbers, there are 7,086 new cases of the virus today. 333 of them are in Ottawa, 72 in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 54 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 51 more cases in Renfrew. City News time, 11:03, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
A little bit of a break from the snow and then get ready for more snow. Could see another 5 to 8, perhaps even as much as 15 centimeters in some areas for overnight tonight into Wednesday morning for Ottawa, the Valley, Smiths Falls. Now, we've already reached our high for the day. For the rest of the day, we'll sit at about minus 16, minus 23 for the low. And tomorrow, that snow through the day, the high about minus 4. For today, already reached our high. For the rest of the day, about minus 16.
And right now in Ottawa, it is minus 16. It's minus 15 in Smiths Falls. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland got a briefing last spring from department officials who outlined the case for runaway inflation as part of a larger review of consumer prices. They warned her the pace of price increases could gain speed, even as the Liberal government and the Bank of Canada stated that inflationary pressures were temporary. The annual inflation rate did hit 4.7% in November. We get the rate for December being released tomorrow. An Ottawa man is almost $90,000 richer today after winning at OLG Pools. Sumit Gara matched all the games in a recent Pools card and claimed $88,585 at the OLG Lottery Centre in Toronto. The married father of 3 told his family right away. He said they were very excited. He plans to use the cash for investments and also for his children's education. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 1011 FM
and 1310 AM.
Syndicated columnist and former speechwriter for Stephen Harper, Michael Taube, is back with us for his weekly appearance here on the Rob Snow Show on City News. Are you all dug out, Michael?
I'm alive.
That's good.
I'm all dug out. Hope you are too in Ottawa.
Yeah, everything's fine here. How was your snow day yesterday?
Wasn't too bad. I actually did write about it, but it was fun. It was... Yeah. My son, his school opted not to have virtual learning because he's private, and some chose not to. So he was able to go outside and I guess the only thing was I have to say I haven't cleared that much snow since, well, I lived in your city, and that was quite a number of years ago. So it's really something.
Yeah.
But it was, you know what? But it wasn't bad. We needed a little bit of pleasure. You know, you just could see it with all the children running around, the animals were having fun. Everyone was enjoying themselves, and based on what we faced the last couple of years with COVID-19, it was nice to see.
Right, yeah. A good old-fashioned snow day, right?
You got it.
Yeah. And you didn't need to call in the Army because you have Doug Ford, right?
I know. Well, Mel,
you've got the Ford Nation. You don't need the Army.
I'm sure he'd think about it.
God, no, I know Mel Lastman. You know, the recently departed Mel Lastman. Gosh, he never lived that down. You know, having to call in the Army, but it would have to be really bad for them to do it again, I guess. But
it was, and you know, when you compared that day to what we faced actually yesterday, it's not even comparable. It was worse yesterday. But no, he overreacted on that. Lastman was a gregarious, populist fellow. If some of your listeners are familiar with him, he was the city's first mega city mayor, as they called him. And, you know, he was an interesting personality. As a mayor, I think he had his good moments and his bad moments, but that was not one of the good ones.
All right. Well, let's talk about this moment yesterday. Okay, you have Doug Ford, and he's, his approval ratings come out in the morning from Angus Reid Institute. He's one of the least popular premiers in the country. His approval ratings are, they're taking a tank. They're like down 6 points, 30% in the polls, 70% are saying he has done a lousy job with the pandemic, but he grabs his shovel, he gets in his pickup truck, and he's driving around Etobicoke. We have a clip. Our correspondent down there with City News, Richard Southern, managed to get him on the phone as he was doing this. So let's roll the tape here. Let's play the clip.
Tell us, you're actually out helping dig people out of the snow, right? Tell us what you're doing.
Well, I'm just out there trying to help people. The cars, they're stuck in a snowbank and got a few people out so far. We're just doing what everyone else was doing. It's helping out. I'm fortunate enough. I got the Ford 150 4x4, and it's really making a difference.
What's the reaction when they see Doug Ford roll down the window?
I don't know. The one guy was helping me push. He didn't know it was me, and then he looked up and he goes, "Oh my!" But it doesn't matter. I'm just like everyone else. I put my pants on one leg at a time. I'm no different. You're going to help your fellow, Etobicoke folks. In my case.
Yeah. I think the key thing there is, I'm just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Because isn't that part of the brand, right? It's totally part of the brand, right?
It really is. That's retail politics at its best. And you don't find many people like that, Rob. Whether you like Doug Ford or don't like Doug Ford, that has been part of his family, including his late brother, Rob. That's how they really sold themselves. Now, to be fair, very quickly, part of that is genuine. That's really how they are as people. And I've known the Ford family off and on and for many, many years, not very close to them, but I know them enough. This is the way that Doug and his late brother were very much like, and even his father in certain ways was like that. It's just it's a brilliant messaging, but it is also a genuine messaging at the same time. And as well, you have to look at it from the point of view of, isn't it something to see, because it's not as common these days, to see a political leader, or in this case, the premier of a province, out there helping a stranded motorist, as Richard Southern caught on his not only with the interview, but the tweet that he circulated, which I noticed too. I think that just things like that, it doesn't mean that his 30% approval rating is going to suddenly shoot off to 65, 70% on the positive side. But it's a sign that, as you sort of said, he's just one of us. He's trying to help out during a time of need. He's trying to give aid where he can. It may be surprising to see a political leader doing that, but it's also refreshing at the same time. But again, it's on brand, like you pointed out.
Yeah. Gosh, on Twitter, though, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
It's just vicious, isn't it? It's really vicious.
It's awful. But again, this is unfortunately the way a lot of political leaders, mostly on the right, but some on the left, are treated. And it's a sign of the times as well. It's just, you're right, no good deed goes unpunished. And this is a classic example of it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move along. We talked last week, because you wrote a column about it, the Novak Djokovic affair, I guess is what we'll call it. So in the end, they kicked him out of the country.
Correct.
So what do you think about how all of that played out. Who comes out looking good after this debacle?
Not many people, let's put it that way. It doesn't matter what you think about Novak Djokovic's position when it comes to COVID-19 vaccines, and I'm fully vaccinated and have a booster shot, so you can imagine what I feel about it. But at the same time, you know, we do live in a free society, and he does have the right to do what he wants with his own body, and if he chooses not to be vaccinated, for reasons which, quite frankly, you and I talked about last week and I've talked about with others, are not terribly legitimate based on his very poor understanding of medicine and science, based on some of the things I quoted in my post column. He's just really, you know, way off in left field when it comes to a lot of these issues. And for that reason, it makes it very frustrating. But at the same time, you have to also look at it from the circumstance that from start to finish, this thing was handled very poorly, both by Novak Djokovic and the Australian government and its Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, where they could not figure out, even up to late November of last year, who really had authority primarily, be it the federal government, which Mr. Morrison runs, or some of the state governments, which are like our provincial governments, even though it had been clearly defined months before that, that the state government of Victoria, in this case for Australia, was going to be the one to manage it. They couldn't even figure out what the rules were when it comes to someone having COVID-19 6 months prior. How can they be allowed in or not? The rules were just simply not clearly defined in Australia, and they should have been from the very start. It should have been as simple as, if you're vaccinated, you get to play in the Australian Open. If you're unvaccinated, you don't get to play. You would obviously get some yelling and shouting on both sides, but it would have been a clear break one way or the other, and all the players, including Djokovic, would have been able to figure it out accordingly. And Scott Morrison, as I talked with you, briefly the last time, up to January 5th of this year, fully understood that the state of Victoria had jurisdiction over who would be let into the Australian Open via COVID-19 rules and restrictions, and then suddenly turn an about face to either, gain more popularity, to insert himself into the equation, or whatever he chose to do. And he came out looking so bad that they then started to try to find ways, anything at their disposal to get him out. And more information was revealed about Djokovic, even past my own column, which just obviously put him in a very bad light, especially the fact that he had appeared at a function, took photos, and was with people a day after he had tested positive for COVID-19. You put the whole thing together, it makes sense that Australia booted him out. It's understandable why this all happened, but at the same time, they should have been clear from the very beginning, and that's the one part where Djokovic is in the right about.
So I'm following with great interest everything that's going on in the UK with Boris Johnson because, the Canadian Conservatives, the Conservatives under Aaron O'Toole, they inquired about and went so far as to hire consultants. Hey, what is Boris getting right that maybe we can take and adopt to the Canadian circumstance? Like, how can he... First of all, he won big, and he wins by-elections, and he's crushing Labour. Well, now he's behind by 10 points in the polls to Labour, right? So, and he's dominating the front pages of the UK newspapers. Accusations now he lied to Parliament about the so-called boozy parties at number 10. That that they were drinking it up, the night before Philip's funeral, for example. I don't imagine the Queen is too impressed with that news.
No.
But now, so on top of that, the UK is having an energy crisis, which is also all over the news. People's electricity bills, heating bills are going through the roof. They're like doubling. Yes. So... my gosh, I can't help but wonder if we are watching the dying days of Boris Johnson's time as Prime Minister. What do you think?
It's a difficult period of time, I grant you on that. I mean, look, you're right. I mean, initially his formula of success, which was to meld together conservative ideals and populist values, worked extremely well to the point that not only did he win a majority in 2019 in the UK, he actually did it in a lot of ridings, a lot of constituencies that the Tories had either never won before or had been decades since they had won it. It was quite amazing. But yes, I agree with you. His undoing has been these quote-unquote boozy parties. That's really what kicked them in. I agree that certainly the energy crisis and the problems that they're having right now are a major issue too, and that's hitting people right in their wallets or their pocketbooks, which is where it hurts the most. But it's really his PR that has fallen apart. And very quickly, there was a recent interview on Sky News in the UK where they talked about the whole issue of the fact that there were a couple boozy parties during Prince Philip's funeral. And the look on the man's face, it was not an act. He went down. He couldn't look at the camera. He was basically, you could just tell he was just thinking, oh, God, this is just getting worse and worse by the second. He knows that there's been enormous mistakes. He knows that he's royally screwed up. He knows that he has lost control of the narrative, and he is having an enormous amount of trouble gaining it back. And he needs to get it back as fast as possible, especially because 6 of his sitting MPs have already said they don't support him as leader and they want him to step down. And from that little number, that can actually get to a much larger number, which would put his majority in some jeopardy. As of right now, it's not, but, it's not heading in the right direction. So do I think Johnson is in his dying days as PM? No, I think he will get through it. Because in the end, ultimately, I think he's going to then try to use some of the charm that he used the last couple of years and try to work it to his advantage and maybe look towards the energy crisis of that issue and try to focus on that more than anything else. But the road to political recovery, my God, Rob, it's so long. It would be so difficult. And there's no guarantee that it will work, but I think he'll barely get through this crisis, but what's left standing is anyone's guess at this point. And it's not good for Boris Johnson. He has a real problem on his hands, and he knows that if he doesn't get control back, if he's not able to utilize his government and sort of push it back towards the successful type of political regime he'd been running for a couple of years, it's going to be very hard for him to recover.
Great to get caught up. Thanks, Mike. Talk soon. Bye-bye. Yep, Michael Taube is a columnist, Troy Media, Looney Politics, National Post, Washington Examiner, many, many more. Former speechwriter for Stephen Harper. This is the Rob Snow Show. We'll talk about the roads, the cleanup after the storm. This is City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, we had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what the grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Wedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
All right, let's get the very latest on the effort to clean up after this big mess. Bryden Dennis is Area Manager, Road Services, City of Ottawa. Good morning, sir. Welcome back.
Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
We're okay. How are you?
Oh, good. It's a little busy right now.
I bet it is. I bet it is. So what is the effort right now? What are you trying to do right now?
So, Rob, our main focus right now is to finish our cleanup on residential streets and then make sure we're getting through our sidewalk, mainly our residential sidewalks. It's going to take a little bit longer, but in the residential areas, that's where our focus is right now.
Okay. And what kind of progress are you making?
We're actually doing pretty good. So we had some streets, residential streets that were completed overnight, and then our crews started on some other ones very early this morning. By the end of today, we should be completely through all the residential streets. So that'll align with the end of the parking ban tonight at 7 p.m.
So by the end of the day, you mean 7 p.m.? Or by the end of the day, you mean midnight?
No, we should be good by 7 p.m. So we're well into the beats here now, probably over 60% on the bulk of them. So we're looking pretty good for residential streets.
Okay, and does that include the sidewalks, or the sidewalks will take a little longer?
Right now, we're looking at the sidewalks. Will probably take a little bit longer, just because of the volume of snow. We've had to switch out some of our equipment. Instead of having a plow blade on, we've had to switch to snow blowers. Just because of the volume of snow. Once we switch to snow blowers, it does take quite a bit longer because they operate at a much reduced rate of speed.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So all told, how many pieces of equipment would you say are involved in this effort, Mr. Dennis?
Well, citywide, we'd have over 500 pieces of equipment out and operating.
500 pieces of equipment. Wow. Now, as for, it's one thing to get all the stuff actually off the street and off the sidewalks. Then there's going to have to be some kind of effort to actually take it away, right? Yeah. To a snow dump. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please? What will be involved with that?
Yeah, so right now, Rob, you're bang on. With the amount of snow that we had come down so fast, our snow storage on our streets and sidewalks is really reached its capacity. So we'll be looking at starting some snow removal operations on Sunday night with the main focus on our arterial roadways, stuff like Bank Street, Byward Market, those areas where we really have extremely limited capacity. So we'll be looking at that Sunday night. That snow, once we put out our signs and we begin operations, we'll take all that snow away. We take it to our snow disposal facilities where it's stored basically until it melts in the spring, summertime.
Yeah. How many of those do we have in the city of Ottawa, the snow dumps?
We have 7 engineered snow disposal facilities.
Okay. Do you feel like... here we are, it's about the third week of January. It's almost the third week of January that we were kind of getting off easy in the city so far, up until yesterday.
Yeah, we definitely had a light start to the winter. With the storm accumulation totals that we just had, we basically doubled in one day the amount of snow we had already received. So it's a pretty significant weather event.
Yeah. So why wait till Sunday to start taking the stuff away? Why wait till Sunday? What's the thinking there?
Actually, that's a good question, Rob. So what we have to do is we have to make sure we've gone through our cleanup properly to open everything up. We also have another storm coming in tonight around midnight that has the potential for 5 to 10 centimeters of snow. So we'll have to make sure we can get that cleaned up. and then by Sunday we'll have the appropriate resources ready to begin that snow removal operation, because it is a very intensive operation when we do our snow removal process.
Right. So again, the parking ban is still in effect until 7 o'clock this evening, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and obviously it was in effect yesterday. So how would you describe the compliance with the parking ban? Did your operators, for example, report any any problems, or for the most part were residents cooperative with the parking ban?
Rob, when we issue the winter weather parking bans, we do see quite a few residents making alternate arrangements, but there's still always cars parked on the street. So our goal is to get as many of those cars off the street as possible, because it really does help us in our efficiency and speed that we can get through the residential networks.
Okay. So right now, at this point in time, for the residents, is there anything that they should be thinking about doing in order to help with the process of snow clearing right now? Thinking, fire hydrants, these kinds of things.
Yeah, definitely. We always appreciate, and so do our fire services partners, any work that the residents can do to help clear fire hydrants. Catch basin clearing is always a big help for us in the long run. Again, getting back to vehicles and parking, the more vehicles that are off the street, the better for us. And then one of the big ones we've really seen today is any a lot of residents have contractors that clear their driveways. Okay. We're seeing a challenge on some of our sidewalks that we have cleared where that snow is being placed back into the sidewalk. So that means we have to come back and clear those. So really, if we can really have residents focus on making sure snow is stored properly, not on the roadway and not in the sidewalk, that would help a lot.
All right. Thank you so much. All the best. All the best to the crews out there. They're doing a great job. Trying circumstances. Yep. Bye-bye. Brian Denys is area manager of road services, where the effort continues here in the city of Ottawa. We'll be right back with former national affairs columnist with the Globe and Mail and commentator for the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. We're going to talk about healthcare reform with the man who literally wrote the book. Okay, he wrote the book on it. Jeffrey Simpson. Right after the news. This is City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, January 18th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 16, feels like minus 25, and in Smiths Falls, it's minus 15, feels like minus 23. Here's what's making news this hour. Ontario health officials are reporting a record number of people in hospital today with 4,182, including 580 patients in intensive care. The province says over 82% of those admitted to the ICU for COVID-19, while 17.9% were admitted for other reasons but tested positive. The Ontario government is also confirming 38 new deaths linked to COVID-19 today. Side street, residential streets, and sidewalks are getting the focus today for snow clearing. The city says the main routes will be touched up on occasions, but the main effect is to clear the 48 centimeters of snow that fell in Ottawa in those areas. The OPP is looking for a hit-and-run driver. It was just after 3 Sunday afternoon when a westbound SUV was signaling to turn when it was hit from behind by a white minivan on Pembroke Street East. The driver of the suspected vehicle continues along that street and was then seen turning onto Peter Street. The vehicle is thought to be a white 2008 to 2010 Dodge Grand Caravan or Chrysler Town and Country minivan. The vehicle would have sustained front-end damage as a result of the collision. Anyone who has any information is asked to call the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Still ahead on the program, Sean Cathcart is a senior economist, Canadian Real Estate Association. And we're going to talk about, obviously, the housing market and how it ended the year, the second year of the pandemic. Just incredible surges in prices for homes all across the country. And it says, affordable housing problems now extend, well beyond major metropolitan areas and into some smaller cities. I mean, years ago, you could have said, that the housing affordability problem, that's a Toronto problem. And even by a Toronto problem, you could say that's a 416 area code problem. It's not a 905 problem. Or it's a Vancouver problem, and it's a Metro Vancouver problem. Now, not anymore. There's a write-up in the Globe and Mail this morning. Typical price of a home across the country rose 26.6% in December compared with December from last year. Fastest pace on record. And the new high for an average selling price for a home. This is nationwide. $811,000. 811. It's eye-watering. $811,700 according to the Canadian Real Estate Association's Home Price Index, which adjusts for pricing volatility. Typical home prices, it goes on in the Toronto region, well above $1 million. And many cities in southern Ontario have topped $800,000. But it goes on. In less populated regions such as Chilliwack, British Columbia, Cambridge, Brantford in Ontario, the home price index is up 40% with the typical value of a property last year, $200,000 higher than a year ago. Not $200,000, but $200,000 more than 1 year ago. It's absolute insanity. So Sean Cathcart, senior economist with the Canadian Real Estate Association, is just ahead. I'm looking forward to that. Now, right now, he spent a career writing columns for the Globe and Mail. He's the author of 7 books, including Chronic Condition, Why Canada's Healthcare System Needs to be Dragged into the 21st Century. New commentary on offer from Jeffrey Simpson about the Canadian healthcare system. It was just published by the Macdonald Laurier Institute, and we're going to go through some of it right now as we're joined by Jeffrey Simpson. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, it's nice to be with you. Just before we get into the nuts and bolts of this commentary, how do you think the Canadian healthcare system has held up through the course of this pandemic?
Oh, man, you have to you have to cut some slack to the system because no system, and it's not just ours, but European systems, Australian systems, were designed with this kind of a pandemic in mind. We had SARS, we've had other pandemics before, but nothing like this, wave after wave. And it's been very, very tough on the staff, obviously, at every level. It's been very hard on the budgets of healthcare. It's been very hard on the administrators. So I think by and large it's done as good a job as you could expect under the circumstances, which are unprecedented. Let's put it that way.
Okay. A lot of the commentary just published by the Macdonald-Laurier Institute deals with a report called the Mazankowski Report. What was the Mazankowski Report?
Well, about 20 or so years ago, Medicare had been in place in Canada for about 30 years. There were a spate of reports that came out, and the Mazankowski Report was commissioned by the Ralph Klein government in Alberta. Don Mazankowski, of course, was a deputy prime minister under Prime Minister Mulroney. And what was interesting about the composition of the team was the fact that there were, I think, about 10, I haven't counted them, people on the commission, let's call it a commission. And a number of them are from outside Alberta. And they all had pretty impressive pedigrees. And they were given a carte blanche mandate to look at the system by Premier Klein. By the way, I should say that around the same time, there was a report done in Saskatchewan. There was, of course, Mr. Romano's report that had been published around the same time. That was a national report. And there'd been one in Quebec under Claude Castonguay, a former health minister, in fact, the father of Medicare in Quebec. They all came out within a reasonably short period of time. And two of them, Mazankowski and Castonguay, said, look, the system's okay, but it's going to be under financial pressure. The population's aging. And so we should think of trying to introduce some kind of private payments for some kind of health care within the system. The other two, the one in Saskatchewan and Mr. Romano's, totally rejected that option and explained that that would lead to two-tier medicine and that would be unfair. And that analysis, the Romano analysis, has essentially prevailed. I was in Alberta a lot in those years that the Mazankowski Report came out, doing lots of different things. And when it came out, it just died. And I remember being up in the Alberta legislature and asking some senior conservatives, I said, what you asked for this report, they gave it to you, what happened? And they basically said the caucus wouldn't have it because any sniff of private payment in the system just wouldn't fly in their districts. And so there were some minor changes that were made, but the more substantial ones that the Mazankowski Commission had recommended were kind of dead on arrival. And, of course, Ralph Klein ruled the show out there at that point, and he put his finger in the air and said, whoop, the winds aren't blowing the right way, so thank you very much, and we'll move on to something else.
I wonder how much of this is cultural, in your opinion. Many Canadians hold their healthcare system in such high regard. It's sort of part of the Canadian identity, Medicare, and the story of Medicare, Tommy Douglas, greatest Canadian. How does that contribute to the resistance to any kind of reform, in your opinion?
Oh, I think it's profound. I think you put your finger on what, more than anything else, prevents a serious analysis of any substantial change. That and the fact that we live next to our American friends. And so if you write a book, as I did, that looked at the Swedish system, the Australian system, and some other systems and said, look, here's how our Canadian system compares to those systems. And on international rankings, we don't compare very well. That may be interesting from an academic point of view, but we only know what we know if we know much about the U.S. system. And the U.S. system, as a share of the economy, eats up about a quarter to a third more than ours and doesn't produce better results. So it's not a good model, but it's the one that Canadians know. And of course, we've had a lot of political people use the American model, not just to defend ours, but to scare people in terms of any change. I remember Jean Chrétien, for whom I had a high regard, used to say, I'm going to parody his accent, down there, they check your wallet before your balls. That's crazy. But, it was a brilliant Chrétien-esque phrase to basically scare people into saying everybody in the United States has to pay for their care, which isn't true. They have a very large free system for seniors and one for people of low income. But by and large, it's the system we think we know something about, and we don't want it. And therefore, any suggestion that we move away from the status quo is immediately caught up in the fears we have about turning this into the U.S. system.
Yeah, but how does our healthcare system actually compare to the healthcare systems of our other peer countries, say, minus the United States, which you point out actually rank in many global rankings ranks worse than ours?
That's true. When I was doing that book, which came out 10 years ago, I spent a lot of time scouring around trying to find international comparative studies of healthcare systems. And I underline, before I answer your question, that they all asked different questions. They had different methodologies. So there's no one gold standard that everybody in the world accepts. So the Organization for Economic Development has one. The Commonwealth Institute in the United States, which has nothing to do with the British Commonwealth, they put out an annual comparisons. Others do. And in all of these comparisons, the Canadian system comes across as a reasonably expensive one, not the most expensive in terms of the amount that we spend, but we're up among the top spending countries. But the outcomes are below average. Generally speaking, there's some areas where we're kind of average, and there's a bunch where we're not average. We're below average. So that's kind of a cost-benefit reflection of where we are. But again, the average Canadian, God love them, doesn't spend his or her time reading international comparative studies of the healthcare system. And if you stand up on a platform and say, do you know that in the latest Commonwealth Institute study, and by the way, this has been the same for many years, Canada's system ranks second from the bottom. The Americans are the worst, we're second. The Australians, the New Zealanders, the Germans, the Swedes, the French, and so they're all above us. It doesn't resonate. People kind of say, well, we don't know anything about those systems, but they're complicated.
Yeah.
And if you, in fairness, I'm almost arguing a little bit against myself. If I were to say to you, let's scrap the Canadian system and use the Dutch-German system or the French system, that'd be an earthquake. We'd have to change all kinds of different stuff. And I don't think you said correctly, this is a cultural part of our country, and you don't change culture very radically. So I think the best thing to do is to try to graft onto the Canadian system certain things that are done in other countries that contribute to making their systems a better performing than ours.
That this idea that we could have a parallel system where I would buy health insurance. I mean, in some of our peer countries, there's a mandate to buy health insurance. You must buy health insurance.
In Australia, yes.
That we would have extra billing and you can go to a private hospital, even though there would always be universal access to a public hospital. You think culturally that might be a non-starter for many?
I think so, but I have to say I was wrong in something. I've been wrong on many things.
Okay.
I thought at the time that book came out 10 years ago that the aging of the population, okay, and it is, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
More people are therefore going to be needing more health care. And that the Achilles heel of our system are the wait times. And, of course, the pandemic has greatly exacerbated that problem because even when this pandemic is over, the backlogs for diagnostic testing and for operations and so on is going to be just terrible, and so will the pressure on the government budgets. So I thought that what would happen is that as the population aged, people would say, okay, the males would say, look, the morbidity tables say we're going to live till we're 78 on average, okay? And I'm 70, so I've got 8 years left, and I got a bad hip, or I got a bad knee, or I don't see well because of cataracts, or whatever. And the government comes along and says, well, we can do your knee, and we can do that in 14 months. And the guy would say, well, wait a minute. I've only got 8 years left. You're telling me I got to wait for a year before this is done? No, that's your time frame, not mine. and I put some money away in retirement, and maybe I won't go to Florida this year or whatever, and I'd like to buy my hip being replaced or my knee being replaced faster than the government's timeline. And I thought that would, over time, as the population aged, begin to create conditions under which you would get a better argument for clinics that develop this service outside the public service. As with the Shouldice hernia service down near Toronto. But it hasn't happened. It'll be interesting to see after the pandemic, because for reasons that we all understand, the hospitals were under tremendous pressure during the pandemic, and they had to keep ICUs and staff occupied with the COVID problem or in anticipation of patients who'd be affected by COVID. So all kinds of delays have occurred. I mean, months and months of backlog now, maybe even several years of backlogs in some provinces. And maybe at that point, people will say, well, wait a minute, gee, I thought I was going to wait 8 months. Now you're telling me I have to wait 18 months.
Right.
So...
and premiers may decide, well, I have no choice but to explore it, perhaps. They'll be under such political pressure to do something about it.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Older people vote more than younger people.
Yes.
And older people consider health care to be more urgent for them and important than younger people who think they're going to live forever. So possibly. But as I say, I was wrong in thinking 10 years ago that there would be more of an acceptance of that. It hasn't happened. And maybe the effect of this pandemic, when people find out, as I say, that those procedures are going to be delayed for quite a long period of time, will say, well, gee, I really do need an alternative. And nature abhors a vacuum, and maybe at that point in political circles, people will come along and say, okay, let's think about doing something differently. And as I say, there are ways of grafting these things onto the system that other countries have used, but we get immediately into, oh, you want two-tier medicine, the rich will pay and the poor will suffer, and we'll be like the Americans, and end of discussion.
Okay. Lots to think about. Thank you so much, Jeffrey Simpson. A real pleasure to have you on the program today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
His commentary just published by the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, longtime Globe and Mail national affairs columnist. That's Jeffrey Simpson. 11:47. Right back talking real estate in the incredible 2 years in real estate with a senior economist, Canadian Real Estate Association. That's next here on City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. You know, there's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. You know, then customer service, you know, we're big on that. The cashiers, the deli, you're not, if you ask for something, they're not going to point, it's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there, okay? If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers. And we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, you know, can you try getting me this? You know, can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now, okay? So we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to, you know, live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them that, you know, like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, you know, from like all over the world. And we source it through, you know, distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. Nothing really complicated about that. You know, we turn over a lot of product. You know, we package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You know, you're always going to find, you know, Cuddy turkey breast, you know, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here, okay? Not only baked, made, like, you know, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread, okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. You know, your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, you know, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. You know, takes, you know, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
Voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So again, let's talk about real estate now. And we're joined this morning by Sean Cathcart, Senior Economist, Canadian Real Estate Association. Welcome back.
Hi, Rob. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. You getting out of the snow?
Yeah, we're doing just fine. How are things where you are?
Snowed in.
Snowed in. Okay. Yeah, because you're in Ottawa, right? You're in Ottawa?
I am in Ottawa, but my kids did go to school today, so
okay.
That's one thing.
Yeah, okay. All right. So the housing market, tell us about how the year 2021 went for the housing market.
Sure. Well, the year 2021 was a record year for sales in the housing market across Canada. It is a record year for prices, as most people know. And we ended the year with a record low supply of homes for sale. So not boding all that well for things to turn around in 2022.
Okay. So for 2021, would you say the way the year ended with this incredible appreciation, 26.6% as of December for prices, for Canadian home prices, that's a nationwide number. Some markets, you know, will have a lower number, some will have a higher number, but it averages out to 26% because you use an index, right? This is according to an index. How would you say that compares with what the expectations were for the year? Did it exceed expectations? Was it in line with the expectations? What would you say as an economist?
Well, Rob, you know, you're sort of asking me to put myself in the line of fire here.
That's okay.
At the risk of being controversial, you know, it was definitely below most forecasts.
Okay.
But probably in line with what a lot of us thought would happen. And so, you know, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself with data that hasn't happened yet. But when you see, you know, 1.6 months of inventory nationally, there's only one way that prices are going to go. And unfortunately, there's just not enough housing for all the people that want it. And so it's only going to overflow on the price side. I, in my heart of hearts, would want it to overflow on the sales side of things and see young families getting into homes that they can put down roots and raise their family in. And but unfortunately, there's just not enough of them for all the folks that want them.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's a shame. It really is a shame.
Yeah, and you know, we could talk about that in a minute, but I want to talk about, you know, this. When we used to talk about outrageous real estate prices, it was basically a tale of two markets. It was a Toronto story and a Vancouver story. But now it's really evolved, hasn't it, Sean? It's a national story now, right? It's a national issue now, right?
Well, I mean, in some ways, I think we've wasted a lot of column inches and airtime, you know, giving, you know, a voice to people who are like, it's going to crash. You know, $300,000, that's unbelievable. And here we are now at $800,000. So, you know, the conversation we really should be having, that's a bit more of an adult conversation, is, okay, how do we get more housing built?
Yeah.
We're going to have record immigration from now until the end of time, and plus a demography that is increasingly middle-aged. The boomers aren't selling their homes, and all the millennials are coming in to, middle-aged, having families and kids, and they want to grow. They want to buy the house that they grew up in, but the problem is their parents are still living in it. So it's a secular problem. It's what's known as a secular problem. It's something that we've never encountered before.
Okay.
Going from a young population after World War II to a middle-aged population, and ultimately an elderly population, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, if those are the problems, I mean, there are no easy solutions. I mean, if find me a policymaker that can fix demographics, right? It's not happening. But on issues of municipal zoning and regulations and restrictive municipal housing regulations, there may be some work to be done on that front. What do you think?
Exactly. Like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and like the next best time is today. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do anything about the problem, but it is a big hill to climb. And like I said, maybe we shouldn't have spent the last 10 years listening to people, screaming hysterically about the bubble that was going to crash, when the problem was the exact opposite. That the real estate prices were going to get out of control. And but anyway, let's leave that aside. What can we do today? We can. Well, you have to decide whether you want to sprawl, whether you can rezone. Yellow belt is their known areas.
Okay.
Places like where I live, we talked last time I was on the show about Campo homes.
Campo homes, yeah.
Exactly. A 1,400 square foot home on a 6,000 square foot piece of ground that could probably house 4 houses this size. So you can rezone it all you want, but I think that there's going to be a lot more resistance when the wrecking ball comes in. But ultimately, you sort of picture yourself 20, 30, 40 years down the road and looking back, what does this look like? And try to figure out what we should do about this problem. Because, I have kids, and I'd like for them to be able to be homeowners one day, too. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Thank you, Sean Cathcart. We'll speak soon.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.